Senate Bill number 25 of 2023 that is co-sponsored by the Member of Parliament for Marakwet West, that is Honorable Timothy Torotich. It's a Senate bill brought by the Nandi Senator, Honorable Simon Cherargei. It's in its first reading, and that is the County Government's Amendment Bill, that is Bill number 25 of 2023. Article 10 of the Constitution provides for the national values and principles applicable to state officers when exercising public power. These values and principles include good governance, integrity, transparency, and accountability. One of the means of ensuring accountability in the exercise of public power is oversight of members of the executive by the legislature at both levels of government, that is the national and the county levels. In that regard, Section 40 of the County Government Act provides for the procedure for the removal of a member of the county executive by a county assembly. However, cognizant that the office of the county executive committee member is established by the Constitution, noting that adverse consequences of removal by impeachment of a member of a county executive committee in the Act are very low. The bill, that is the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 25 of 2023, proposes to enhance the threshold of voting in a county assembly for the removal of a member of a county executive committee. The bill neither delegates legislative power to the Cabinet Secretary nor limits fundamental rights and freedoms. That is on the statement on the delegation of legislative powers and limitation of fundamental rights and freedom. The bill proposes to enhance the voting threshold in a county assembly, that is for the removal of a member of a county executive committee. Members of a county executive are appointed to head various dockets in the county executive charged with discharging of devolved functions as set out in Part 2 of the 4th Schedule of the 2010 Constitution. This bill affects the powers and functions of the county governments, and it's therefore a bill that concerns counties, that is in terms of Article 110(1)(a) of the Constitution. On whether this bill is a money bill or within the meaning of Article 114 of our Constitution, this bill is not a money bill within the meaning of the Article 111 of the Constitution. That is the bill number 25 of 2023, brought today by Honorable Timothy Torotich, who is a co-sponsor, as it's a Senate bill brought by Nandi Senator Honorable Samson Cherargei. Also, there is a bill on the Agricultural Profession Registration and Licensing Bill, that is National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2024, that is on its first reading. This is the bill by Tigania West Member of Parliament, Honorable John Mutunga. And the speaker, today's speaker of the session, Honorable Gladys Bose, has walked into the House for the session that is expected to commence shortly. And I now hand over you to the plenary. Stay tuned.
Honorable members, let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
The House, having not achieved quorum pursuant to Standing Order 34 for the commencement of the House, a bell has been rung for 10 minutes to allow members of Parliament to walk into the House for today's third session of the morning sitting. And the majority whip is at the presence of Parliament, whipping members to proceed to the House so as the session begins. We have a motion on the policy for the provision of mental health services in all healthcare facilities. That is the motion by Likoni Member of Parliament, Honorable Mishi Mboko. The House urges the national government, through the Ministry of Health, to collaborate with county governments to develop a policy integrating mental health care services in all healthcare facilities in the country. Aware that Article 43(1) of the Constitution provides that every person has a right to the highest attainable standard of health, including the right to health care services. The mental health is a key determinant of overall health and social economic development. The Constitution assigns to the national government the responsibility of matters of health policy. It's a concern that, according to the World Health Organization, mental and neurological disorders are common, and about 10% of the global population suffer from at least one mental health disorder at any given time. It's a concern that the units are only available in very few facilities in our country, and patients requiring these services have limited or no access at all to these facilities. And while acknowledging that access to healthcare facilities would lead to improved overall health, increased economical productivity, social equity, and therefore improves the overall quality of life for all Kenyans. That is a motion brought by Honorable Mishi Mboko, the Member of Parliament for Likoni, on a policy for the provision of mental health services in all healthcare facilities in the country, the 290 constituencies, in our collaborations with the 47 county governments. We have a motion number 28 of 2023, the motion on establishments of a science museum in our country. That is a motion by Dagoretti South Member of Parliament, Honorable John Kiarie. Article 11.2b of the Constitution provides that the government shall recognize the role of science and indigenous technologies in the development of our nation. The Vision 2030 provides for the integration of information, communication and technology in our country's transformative National Science Museum for consolidating indigenous scientific and technological innovations, the training and the research purposes in East African region. And while appreciating that integration of science and technology would greatly enhance Kenya's economic and societal success, there is potential for growth in technology sector by establishing a science museum. The informal science education plays a key role in the progressions of science, technology, engineering and mathematics in our country. The science museums operate as the nexus between the science practitioners, the policy makers and the public. And therefore, a science museum in the country would greatly impact on the economy of the country in the quest to become an industrialized nation. And therefore, the House resolves that the national government, through the relevant ministries, establishes and makes sure it operates a science museum in the country. That is a motion number 28 of 2023 on the establishment of a science museum in the country by the Honorable Member for Dagoretti South, Honorable John Kiarie. We also have a motion on supporting and promoting local fertilizer manufacturing industries in the country. That is the motion by Honorable Samuel Atandi. Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Act 2015 provides for the regulation of fertilizer importation in our country. The Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Board regulates that fertilizer and animal foodstuffs industry, including the manufacture and production of fertilizers. The country currently relies heavily on imported fertilizer due to inadequate local production capacity. And the low production leads to high cost for farmers, that is reducing their profits, and results in unhealthy reliance on imported fertilizer. It's a concern that the scenario threatens the country's food security in case of supply disruptions and discourages local productions. The local production of fertilizer could lead to the improved fertilizer quality, increased crop yields in the country, and reduction in the environmental harm caused by the use of the substandard fertilizers. While recalling that the country has the potential to produce fertilizer that could meet the country's domestic demand and also to just supply the regional market, there is need for the government to work with the local producers to develop the high-quality fertilizers that is tailored to the needs of Kenyan farmers and crops. Therefore, the motion number 33 of 2023 on supporting and promoting local fertilizer and manufacturing industries by the Honorable Member Samuel Atandi, the House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, supports and promotes the local fertilizer manufacturing industries by investing in research and development to boost the domestic fertilizer manufacturing sector, having in mind that this is the country's food security. We also expected this morning to have a debate on a motion on the government-to-government G2G model to acquire and supply fertilizer to farmers at subsidized cost. While still at fertilizers, this is a motion by Honorable Geoffrey Ruku, motion number 35 of 2023. Kenya is an agricultural-based economy with a significant portion of its population relying on farming for their livelihoods. The quality and the quantity of crop yields in Kenya has been hampered to a large extent by lack of adequate and quality fertilizers, leading to a decreased agricultural productivity and economic losses. The government has committed to improving agricultural productivity through the various initiatives, including that of provincial of subsidized fertilizers, concerned that the cost, quantity, and the quality of fertilizers, and subsequent the cost of production of food crops and cash crops, that is including coffee, tea, and miraa, has increased due to this number of factors. And the quorum has been achieved. And I now hand over you to the plenary. Listen in. My name is Angela Cheror. This has been the Parliamentary Broadcast Unit in collaborations with KBC. Stay tuned.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, June 5th, 2024, in this morning sitting. Number 1, the 2024 Economic Survey Report, including the popular version of the report and the facts and the figures booklet from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. 2, annual statutory reports of the Council of Governors for 2022-2023. First quarterly report of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission covering the period of 1st January 2024 to 31st March 2024. Report of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights on the Shakahola killings. 5, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2022, and the certificates therein in respect of Kenya Institute of Supplies Management and Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examinations Board Foundation. And 6, reports of the Auditor General financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2023, and the certificates therein in respect of A, Kenya Revenue Authority, Sports Kenya, Information and Communication Technology Authority, Maseno University, Agrochemical and Food Company Limited, National Council for Children's Services, Parethram Processing Company of Kenya, Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, National Industrial Training Authority, Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute, Kenya Forestry Research Institute, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology, Karatina University, Pwani University, and Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examinations Foundations. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Who has questions? Is that... Honorable Amina, did you have a statement?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Lands regarding the status of processing of title deeds for squatters residing in Msabaha sublocation within Malindi constituency. Honorable Speaker, the issue of land settlement in the coastal region has been a protracted matter among the communities in the region, revolving around questions of ownership and residency. In 2022, the government took significant steps by acquiring land from the Mazrui community with the aim of resettling squatters from Sabaha region in Malindi constituency and to resolve the endemic land matters in the region. Indeed, the identification process for the squatters was conducted and concluded in 2022. However, despite these strides, the residents of Msabaha find themselves in an uncomfortable predicament, lacking the crucial title documents affirming their occupancy rights. Moreover, a definite timeline for the completion of the resettlement program has not been provided, further exacerbating concerns by the residents. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Lands on the following. A, what are the specific reasons for the delay in finalization of the settlement program and issuance of title deeds of the residents? And B, could the chairperson provide an update on the timeline for settling the residents of Msabaha area in Malindi constituency? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I don't see any other statement, so we may proceed. Next order. Okay, I don't have a list, actually. The chairperson lands? I don't have a list of them. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The chair is not around, but I'm in the Land Committee, and we undertake that we'll give a response in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's proceed. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, exemption of certain business from the provision of Standing Order 43.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 15 and 16 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order number 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for the business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. Honorable Speaker. Sorry? Oh, I beg to move and ask Honorable Dr. Bukose to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to second that the business appearing as either sponsored by majority or minority be exempted from the House to allow the House to prosecute very urgent matters as it is. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing on order number 15 and 16 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. I can see the mood of the House that we should put the question. Honorable members, exempt the business appearing on order number 15 and 16 in today's order paper for the provisions from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for the business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 9, procedural motion, resolution to hold a Thursday morning sitting.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 33C, this House resolves to hold a morning sitting on Thursday, 6th June 2024, commencing at 9:30 for purposes of considering priority budget-related business. Honorable Speaker, you'll realize that we have a very short sitting session this month that commenced yesterday and will lapse on July 5th. But we've got several business to transact, and it's therefore prudent for us to have to hold a morning sitting tomorrow, and for the budget-related business, at least to fast-track the businesses that we have to transact before we go for a short recess in July, on July 5th. So I move and request Honorable Eric Wamumbi to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second that we hold a morning session tomorrow. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Order 33C, this House resolves to hold a morning sitting on Thursday, 6th June 2024, commencing at 9:30 a.m. for the purposes of considering priority budget-related business. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 33C, this House resolves to hold the morning sitting on Thursday, 6th June 2024, commencing at 9:30 a.m. for the purposes of considering priority budget-related business. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 10, the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 25 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the County Governments Act to increase the threshold for removal of a member of a county executive committee and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Agricultural Professionals Registration and Licensing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 19 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to make provision for the registration and licensing of agricultural professionals, to provide for the regulation of standards and practice of their profession, to provide for the establishment, powers and functions of the Agricultural Professionals Registration and Licensing Board, and for connected purposes. Order number 12, the Kenya Roads Board Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 20 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Kenya Roads Board Act 1999. Order number 13, the National Police Service Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the National Police Service Commission Act 2011. Order number 14, the Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 25 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Pensions Act and for connected purposes. Order number 15, motion, consideration of the second supplementary estimates for the financial year 2023-2024, general debate.
Chairperson, Budget Committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the second supplementary estimates for financial year 2023-2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 4th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution and Standing Order 243, 1, approves an increment of the total current expenditure for financial year 23-24 by Kenya shillings 51 billion 113 million 484,433 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule. 2, approves a decrease of the total capital expenditure for financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 75 billion 290 billion 535,117 in respect of the vote as contained in the first schedule. 3, approves an overall decrease in the total budget for financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 24 billion 117 million 50,684 shillings in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule. And 5, approves Kenya shillings 23 billion 666 billion. Let me repeat, Honorable Speaker. Number 4, approves Kenya shillings 23 billion 667 million 17,803 spent under Article 223 of the Constitution in respect of the votes outlined in the third schedule. And 5, resolves that the first schedule forms the basis for the introduction of the Supplementary Appropriations Bill 2024. Honorable Speaker, I just wish to highlight a few things to members. And as I do so, I want to thank this House because we have been very busy for the last 2 weeks in what was to be a recess. Honorable Speaker, most of these members have been working long hours to see this process come through, Honorable Speaker. I also want to thank the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee because besides the consideration of Supplementary 2, which we will be currently debating, alongside we've been considering the main estimates for the year 2024-2025, and at the same time, the mediation process in this, with the Senate has been ongoing, and at the same time, consideration of the division of revenue, which necessitated the mediation, Honorable Speaker, and also equalization fund. And therefore, it has been a very, very, very busy period, Honorable Speaker, and I want to thank all the members, and especially those members in the departmental committees for doing a very thorough job. Honorable Speaker, the essence of Supplementary 2, and it is usually said that supplementary budget could be a reference of something that could have been done better. And Honorable Speaker, whereas I agree, I have also noted through the time we've been serving in the Budget and Appropriations Committee that dynamics in the economy necessitate even a supplementary estimates, like the one we are doing at the wee hours of the financial year. And Honorable Speaker, this happens because economies are not static. Economies are dynamic in nature. The variables that then make the economy, Honorable Speaker, they are all moving vehicles, they are more moving targets. And for that reason, Honorable Speaker, these supplementary estimates too is seeking to align the government financials as we close the financial year to be at a tidy state, to be at a level where the revenues that were projected, which are now almost reality, will now be incorporated as we make the supplementary. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, the essence of this supplementary, the sum, the total sum of it is negative. The total sum of the supplementary 2 is that we are reducing the expenditure by 24 billion. Why are we reducing expenditure, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, Kenya being a very optimistic country and being with people who are high achievers, we always set our targets based on our norms. And therefore, our revenue targets, Honorable Speaker, sometime conform with our norm of being optimistic, but then close to the close of the financial year, then we realized we needed to moderate our optimism towards realism, Honorable Speaker. And that is why we are descending from the previous figure by 24 billion in the reality of the fact that the estimates in terms of revenue that we had at the beginning of the year were a bit optimistic. But Honorable Speaker, that is not to say that we are not performing in terms of revenue. We are performing as a country with a double-digit growth in revenue, only that we projected to collect much more, and therefore we had overstretched our targets. Honorable Speaker, there are some few areas, even as we tidy up the financials, that we have been working on. One, Honorable Speaker, is the area of CFS. Members, if you check in the order paper that we have, you realize that one of the areas that is having a reduction is the Consolidated Fund Services, Honorable Speaker. And if members remember in Supplementary 1, it is the same area that actually had an increment. Why CFS? Honorable Speaker, by the time we were considering Supplementary 1, Kenya shillings to the USD was going to close to 180 Kenya shillings to the greenback. Honorable Speaker, in regards to the other currencies, Kenya was decimated. But in the current situation, Honorable Speaker, in the consideration of estimates 2, Supplementary 2, Honorable Speaker, Kenya shillings to the greenback is just around 130 shillings. And the interest rates also, globally and locally, are beginning to respond to the macro improvement in the macro parameters. And in that respect, CFS forms the huge bulk of, interest rates forms the huge bulk of CFS. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, it was important that we align the current realities of the payment of interest rates in regards to the current dynamics, which is an appreciation in the Kenya shillings and also other favorable dynamics in the money market, and especially in terms of the exchange rate. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, it was important that we make this Supplementary 2 so that our payment of interest rates is taking care of the gain in terms of our local currency and the other dynamics around interest rates. But even having said that, Honorable Speaker, there are also some other sectors that we have deemed are important for enhancement, even as we come to the close of the financial year. Honorable Speaker, one of those areas is education, where in this Supplementary 2, higher education is actually gaining 4 billion shillings. But Honorable Speaker, this is majorly appropriations in aid, because our universities have been able to collect much more A&A than was projected at the beginning of the financial year. And Honorable Speaker, that's something we may actually need a discussion, because every time we are in a budget cycle, even like now, we see there is a lot of incentive for the MDAs to budget for A&A that is much less than what they usually collect. Honorable Speaker, possibly that is an area that we may also need to talk about, though we have put it in our recommendations, Honorable Speaker, and especially for the main budget. Honorable Speaker, another area that has had increment is the security sector. And Honorable Speaker, this is based on the realities of our country. Honorable Speaker, we have been able to add a little more money to the police service, National Police Service, and also all the other agencies insofar as security is concerned, because it is important that we capacitate them even as we close the year, and especially to take care of things that have already been spent under Article 223. The other thing that is important for members to note, in this Supplementary 2, we have added Kenya shillings 4 billion in terms of fertilizer subsidy, because, Honorable Speaker, agriculture is the backbone of our country. However much we are making policies to move towards having agriculture account for much less in terms of GDP, the reality is that we are still there. The reality is that Kenya is more agrarian than industrial. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, the program that we've been running in terms of fertilizer subsidy, we have seen a lot of results in the previous months, Honorable Speaker, and therefore it was important, even as we move through seasons, that we have enough fertilizer for the farmers, so that, Honorable Speaker, we capacitate them to produce more and also make agriculture a favorable and profitable business, and especially by subsidizing inputs. Honorable Speaker, there were some areas that were left out in the last budget cycle, insofar as paying sugarcane farmers is concerned, and especially those who have supplied sugarcane in public sugar factories, Honorable Speaker. We have also input that balance in this supplementary so that the sugar farmers of this country can get their dues, Honorable Speaker, and especially the arrears that are due to them. Honorable Speaker, maybe there are two so that other members can also take a point, can also get a chance. Honorable Speaker, in Kenya, when it rains, we get blessings in many respects. But also in terms of the recent rains, Honorable Speaker, we have had to expend public resources in terms of mitigation of the damage caused by the El Nino. And I want to assure honorable members that we have also incorporated the expenditure, both at Article 223 and the requirements for the remaining part of the financial year in these supplementary estimates, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to support those who were the victims of the floods. And in that, Honorable Speaker, I also want to make it very clear that the Budget and Appropriations Committee in this House, our proposal is that because some of the people who were victims of these calamities, their livelihoods were destroyed. Honorable Speaker, I got a chance to go to Naivasha, where we got a very massive landslide and floods, Honorable Speaker. I also went to Mathioya in Muranga, where the people suffered the same. I have also been to Tana River, Honorable Speaker, and saw the kind of havoc that the victims of these floods and excessive rains are going through. Our proposal, Honorable Speaker, in terms of also allocation, is that besides the government giving food ratios to those who are affected, that the government must move forward, Honorable Speaker, and get these people resettled to other more favorable land, Honorable Speaker. A place like Naivasha, where there was a landslide, those families can no longer go back to those areas. And Honorable Speaker, it behoves of the government to assist its people at those kind of situations. And that is why, in consultation with the executive, Honorable Speaker, we have been able to provision monies to be used for the resettlement of the people who are affected by the floods and the excessive rains, Honorable Speaker, so that they can get comfort by not being resettled back in areas that are impossible to live in, Honorable Speaker. The other issue is that when we get rains, Kenya being practicing agriculture that is rain-fed, Honorable Speaker, also, our livestock also get what they need to produce more milk. And therefore, we usually have a glut and overproduction in terms of milk. And that is the reason why we have given UKCC some resources for mopping up of milk during this time of overproduction. And we have given them money in two ways. One, for mopping out of the excess raw milk, but also number two, money for modernization of their factories so that they can start producing powdered milk effectively and in a manner that is cost effective. The current machinery that they have, Honorable Speaker, and the current technology they deploy in terms of making powdered milk is not efficient. It therefore ends up producing milk that then becomes uncompetitive comparative to other milk-producing countries, Honorable Speaker. And we have done that because we know that we need to support our milk farmers, as we need to support our sugar farmers, as we need to support our coffee farmers, our tea farmers, and that is reflected in the estimates. Honorable Speaker, maybe lastly, Parliament, many times people confuse Parliament with members of Parliament. Parliament is an institution, and Parliament is the cornerstone of democracy. Honorable Speaker, in terms of the rule of a modern state, rule of law is important, democracy is important, but also an efficient bureaucracy is important. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, looking at Parliament, there has been arrears for the drivers and bodyguards who work here in Parliament, Honorable Speaker. From January, they have not been able to get their dues. Honorable Speaker, I want to confirm that you have put in enough resources to pay the drivers and bodyguards of these members, Honorable Speaker, their arrears from January to date, Honorable Speaker. And in that respect, I request the National Treasury that they expedite in releasing the exchequer that we have added for the arrears of the bodyguards and drivers, because these are people who have families they need to take care of. They have needs, Honorable Speaker, and the more the reason, just like any other civil servant, we were able to put in the arrears for the bodyguards and drivers so that they get their due arrears from January to date so that they can go about their business in an efficient manner. Having said that, Honorable Speaker, I now wish to request the Honorable Mary Emase I beg to move, Honorable Speaker, having given those points, having said that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request the Honorable Majority Leader to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And allow me, Honorable Speaker, first to thank our Chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee and the members of our Budget and Appropriations Committee, all our chairs for the very good work that they have done over the working recess. You realize, Honorable Speaker, as some of us had time to retreat to our constituencies, many of our departmental committee members, their chairs, and those members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee and the Finance Committee have had a very busy working recess as they considered both the supplementary budget and the annual estimates and the ongoing finance bill engagements over the recess period. And I take this opportunity to thank them for the great work that they have done. And Honorable Speaker, as I second, I want to reemphasize the need, Honorable Speaker, for the National Treasury to ensure that these supplementary budgets, as we have emphasized before, and the Honorable John Buddy, who is here and is a ranking member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, will tell you that over the years, this House has called on the National Treasury to limit supplementary budgets to at least one supplementary budget within a financial year, so that whatever you plan from your BPS right to the annual estimates, you will only revise it once. Otherwise, the business of having to do budgetary revisions twice, thrice in a year is not very good budgetary practice. And it speaks volumes to the level of preparedness that we have when we are preparing our budgets, Honorable Speaker, and also, in a way, creates uncertainty with the implementing agencies in government as to whether you will have adequate resources to implement all the programs that have been budgeted for you within a certain financial year, Honorable Speaker, since you do not know whether that money is subject to review. And appreciating, Honorable Speaker, the challenges that we've had with liquidity, or rather with the raising of revenues in the country, it is only fair that the National Treasury and those who are planning do so with a lot of prudence to ensure that the revenues we project are as realistic as possible, as close to what the reality is as possible, Honorable Speaker. And we must also take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to call on the Kenya Revenue Authority to pull up their socks, Honorable Speaker, to make sure that we are collecting adequate revenues to ensure that we do not keep revising our budgets through these supplementary budgets. Honorable Speaker, let me also note some good progress. As members will note, we have spoken, Honorable Speaker, at length about how we budget, how transparent our budgeting process is. And I must commend the Budget and Appropriations Committee because this time round, they have been very transparent in attaching the schedule. Honorable Speaker, the schedules that you members will find attached from page 757, or rather the first, all the way from the first to the fourth schedule, Honorable Speaker, including the changes that have been made. And Honorable Speaker, this is very good because it allows members to interrogate what are the changes that have been made by the Budget and Appropriations Committee, so that we avoid the temptation that I've always seen over the years to blame the Budget and Appropriations Committee members that they have reallocated money from here to there without the knowledge of the House. I have seen also members accusing each other. And Honorable Speaker, because I have been part of those members who have been on the receiving end. I saw the member for Yata the other day, ignorantly speaking on TV, saying how much money that was allocated to Kiambu County and was all diverted to Kiko constituency. And I wondered, this is a member who sits in this House, budgets, appropriates, is always in this House. Where was he when that money was being reallocated? Because it is not possible for one member of this House to reallocate resources from one or the other constituency to another. It is not possible. These changes are usually in these schedules, and that's why I thank the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee because of the disclosures that you are making, so that even as we speak on TV stations, let us not appear on TV to exhibit our ignorance of the budgeting process. And it's good that every new parliament, members of parliament, are taken through the budgeting process of the House. And I think from the schedules I was looking at the induction of this House, we had at least 3.5 hours, an induction program. And I want to encourage the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, please keep educating members, even as you speak to them, as you engage with them, even through the committees, on how the budgeting process is done, Honorable Speaker, so that even as we speak out there, we speak from a point of knowledge and not just speak because we are riding on things that are circulated on social media or what you think will give you popularity in your village by mentioning other people's names, as I saw the member for Yata mentioning my name on TV. And I forgave him because I knew he has to mention my name to look relevant to his people. Anyway, Honorable Speaker, moving on from these schedules, there are a number of changes, Honorable Speaker, that are critical, as the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee has mentioned. Issues touching on Article 223, again, Honorable Speaker, we did indicate that Article 223, and it has been the position of this House, Article 223 is only to be used in cases of emergency nature. Honorable Speaker, 223 is not to be used to allocate money to the office of the Leader of Majority for tea, because that is not an emergency. But the emergency that we have faced as a country with the flooding, it is good, Honorable Speaker, that we are seeing more resources going towards mitigation of the issues that came with flooding, right from the monies that are being paid to people who are being moved from riparian reserves within the city and in other areas where people have been asked to move away from rivers and areas where they are prone to flooding and other dangers, Honorable Speaker. And money has been put to ensure that these people are well compensated. I am glad, and I must thank the Ministry of Interior, that for the first time, even as we've seen houses being demolished in Nairobi, all the people who are living in those houses, Honorable Speaker, and I did see a statement from the Ministry of Interior confirming that they have compensated those people to ensure that they are able to relocate and move away from areas that would subject them to dangers of flooding and all the issues we see with climate change, Honorable Speaker. And this is the way to go, so that you do not just tell people move out and they do not know where to go to. And the small stipend of 10,000 shillings that these people are receiving is helping them to be able to move to new houses, most of them because are tenants. And also, let me take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to appeal to all our private developers. Please, you do know the riparian reserves are 30 meters from where the river is. Please let us not encroach on our rivers and the riparian reserves, because when these demolitions come, you also lose, as much as many of them may have been warned before. And I pray that the Ministry of Interior, and I was asking the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, but he has promised within the next budgeting cycle they will allocate monies to also ensure that the areas they are demolishing houses are not re-encroached again, so that they are fenced off, they plant trees, and those areas remain riparian reserves. Because as we have been told, we will receive higher than normal rainfall over the next 7 years. And therefore, some of these measures are indeed to guard against some of the dangers that we'll see. Honorable Speaker, I have also seen changes, Honorable Speaker, in the State Department for higher education. And I have a particular concern, Honorable Speaker, if you go, Honorable Speaker, to the schedules, a change of 250 million that is going to the Open University on recurrent expenditure, and that, I have been informed, is very well justified. But there is also an increase of 250 million shillings of GOK sponsorships to students in private universities. This, Honorable Speaker, I completely disagree with, and we should be engaging. I was just engaging with the chair of the Education Committee to see indication, because remember, we have changed the funding model of university students and how they are sponsored through government. There was an increase in the annual estimates of 150 million, which was reasonable, considered by the Education Committee and agreed on by the Education Committee. And I see the Budget and Appropriations Committee has had another increment of 250 to total 400 million. And therefore, we'll be engaging with the chair and the chair of education so that tomorrow, as we move to supply, we can make the requisite changes, Honorable Speaker. Considering, Honorable Speaker, that many of our public universities are in dire need. Whether it is Bondo University, whether you go to Southeastern University, whether you go to Tharaka University or Chuka University, whether it is Meru University, all our public universities are in dire need of resources. And I know many of them did engage in very ambitious development projects that many of which are stalled. But, Honorable Speaker, we must also be cognizant as a House to ensure that where we put our resources, they follow the policy that has been set out by government. If government's policy is to move to a new funding system, resources then must be moving towards that new funding system, not away from the new funding system, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, we'll be engaging on that, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, let me say the small changes that are there in a bit of the development expenditures because of the issue of absorption. You know, we will now have probably about 3 or 4 weeks before the systems are closed for the new financial year. Honorable Speaker, I do hope that the National Treasury will move with speed to ensure that exchequer releases are also done in time for these MDAs to be able to absorb, especially the development expenditure that is being released at this particular time. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I know MDAs, and I was hoping, Honorable Speaker, that this being the last supplementary budget, we would also see a good review. But let me also take note that the changes that came with the centralized collection of A&A through the e-citizen platform have in a huge way helped government in making sure that all the A&A that is collected by MDAs is properly accounted for. And I want to encourage the government and the National Treasury to ensure that there is seamless, not connectivity, Honorable Speaker, as they say in the Ministry of Roads, but there is seamless engagement between the National Treasury and all our MDAs to ensure that the transactions have that seamless connectivity from their MDAs to the National Treasury to ensure that every coin that is raised by all our MDAs, because we have seen in the past, Honorable Speaker, the last supplementary budget every year has been used by MDAs to do last-minute rush or the last-minute dash towards procurement, because people hide their A&A and they then move to ensure that they are rushing this last month of the financial year to procure goods and services, some of which, Honorable Speaker, from experience and from those who have been here long enough will tell you, especially those that have served in the Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committees, they will tell you most of the corruption issues in government emanate from things that are done either towards the end of a financial year or in the run-up to a general election. That is where you will find most corruption cases emanating in government and in MDAs. And therefore, hope that the new system of a centralized system of catering for or accounting for A&A through the e-citizen platform will go a long way into ensuring that we curb this vice that has been developed in our country for long. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, in the interest of time, let me not say much more, but finally, to just again once more thank the Budget and Appropriations Committee and all our chairs. I know it was not easy for many of them to leave their constituencies during the recess, together with the members of this House who are serving in the departmental committees, to consider the supplementary budget together with the annual estimates, but also to take this opportunity to ask the National Treasury that moving forward, maybe from the next financial year, once we are done with the estimates, annual estimates next week, Honorable Speaker, as we have moved this morning on the procedural motions to allow us time to be able to engage on this supplementary budget, DORA, or the Division of Revenue bill, as mediated. And I know the CARA is also coming, Honorable Speaker. There is also the Equalization Fund appropriation report from the Senate, Honorable Speaker, and the annual estimates. As we finish with those next week and allow the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to come and make his statement next week on Thursday, Honorable Speaker, as was communicated by the Speaker's office yesterday afternoon, we do hope that we will be able to have finalized all this. But also to request the National Treasury, moving forward next year, let us minimize our supplementary budget to at least one in a year. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second.
Honorable members, before I propose the question, allow me to recognize the presence of Matungulu Boys High School from Kangundo constituency in Machakos County, who are seated in the public gallery. Welcome to the National Assembly. I also wish to recognize our guests who are seated in the Speaker's gallery. The guests actually joined our Catholic members of Parliament for prayers this morning, and they are the Sisters of the Immaculate, Father Lazarus of Tangaza University, Reverend Linda of the Anglican Church. Welcome, and as a Loreto Catholic girl, I welcome you personally, and on behalf of the National Assembly, welcome. Thank you. Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the second supplementary estimates for the financial year 2023-2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 4th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 2023 of the Constitution and Standing Order 243, 1, approves an increment of the total current expenditure for the financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 51 trillion, is it? Billion, 113,484,433,000 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule. 2, approves a decrease of the total capital expenditure for the financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 75,290,535,117,000 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule. 3, approves an overall decrease in the total budget of the financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 24,177,050,684 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule, and approves for Kenya shillings 23,667,017,803 spent under Article 223 of the Constitution in respect of the votes outlined in the third schedule, and 5, resolves that the first schedule forms the basis of the introduction of the Supplementary Appropriations Bill of 2024. I'll now give an opportunity to members to debate. I'll start with the Honorable Esther Passaris, member for Nairobi County. I've seen you, Honorable Meli. No, I haven't said I'm giving an opportunity. I've simply said I have seen him because he's waving his hand frantically. Yes, there's a difference. Proceed, Honorable Passaris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand to support the supplementary budget as read by the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. As he prepares the budget for the financial year 2024-25, I would like them to really relook at the estimates that they put and to ensure that we don't over budget. Because when we over budget, as we can see, there's been a reduction on capital expenditure of over 73 billion. And the reason why I say they should not over budget is because it's the budgets that informs the finance committee on the monies that they need to raise. And it's ambitious budgets that actually make us look for ways to raise money that sometimes actually pits us against an economy that is struggling and an economy that has been dwindling. I feel that we need to put a lot more money in Article 2 to 3, which will look after the people the citizens that were affected by the floods. We need to really look at how much money we're going to put, especially here in the county of Nairobi. We have seen so and the government, we need to sort out our dilapidating state of the rivers. We need to safeguard our citizens by reclaiming the riparian land, but that there is a way to do certain things, and we have not followed etiquette ways of doing things. I mean, if we were supposed to actually budget well, we would then be able to put in structures that would make sure that we have a humane face when we're dealing with the citizens who are the citizens of Kenya and look up to us as government to provide for them. I hope that in this supplementary budget, we would also look into the feeding programs for our students, because we have a challenge in not only the public schools, we have a challenge in the community-based schools and in the faith-based schools. We need to start actually touching lives. And when I say touching lives, I don't mean with long-term projects. I mean touching lives with short-term, immediate projects. Right now, we've been pledging to pay the people whose houses we've demolished 10,000 shillings. For me, 10,000 shillings is mediocre. We're thinking that this person whose house we have demolished, we will get 10,000, or because he lives in a slum, he'll be able to find a house, pay a deposit, and then be able to move. What we have not realized is the emotional damage that we have caused that person. Any government, if I were the president of this country, and I really want to say this, because if I was the president of this country and I wanted to clear out the riparian land, the first thing I would have done is gone and identified the houses that I'm going to break. Nobody even knows where it's 30 meters, whether it's 30 meters. People are just waking up with X and their houses are demolished. I would have known that here there's 1,000 houses. I would have actually made sure that I know where they are moving to. Not just break the houses and then tell them to move. Then once I've known that these are the people, because right now you've left it to the chiefs and the DCI and the DCCs have no idea whose houses they've broken, who are the genuine beneficiaries. I mean, it's because we're disorderly. And if government is disorderly, then you can expect citizens will be disorderly. If we had identified and we had budgeted, okay, and we had known this number of people in this particular slum are going to be moved. These are their names. This is the money. This is where you're going to be relocated. You've got 7 days. Then we give them money that is sufficient. And for me, we should have looked at not less than 50,000 per family. 10,000 shillings is not enough. We could have actually said we're giving you NHIF cover. You know, there has to be benefits, because those people found themselves in those riparian lands because we as government failed. We failed the citizens. We have approved for them to build. They didn't just wake up and build. And I'm tired of a Kenya where people are buying land, having title deeds, and then getting loans from banks, and then one fine morning we wake up and say, that's an illegality. It's an illegality that we have caused. So how much money are we putting to strengthening the structures of this country? Because our structures are weak. Yesterday I saw Felix Kosgei on TV saying that the government is going to be zero tolerant on corruption. There is no way you're going to have zero tolerance on corruption if you have not given corruption, the entities that fight corruption, money. Have we given them enough money so that they can fight corruption? I really want to see, even within that supplementary, because nothing is cast on stone, that you provide more money for the citizens that we have aggrieved. We need more food for the citizens that we have aggrieved. And I'm tired of people looking at Nairobi and thinking Nairobi is a rich county. Nairobi is not a rich county because of failures of devolution through corruption. So we need to actually make sure that we actually have an equalization fund for Nairobi. Because as long as all those counties that are getting money are failing, everybody ends up coming for greener pastures in Nairobi. Nairobi is over-congested. And as I stand here, I support fully, and I hope that the budget can consider this, 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. We need to make sure that we appropriate budgets that way. We need to make sure that every citizen, and this will actually improve our democracy, because when we say 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, people will take voting seriously. People will ensure that they register as voters. Because right now we have voter apathy. 8 million people did not vote. Why? Because they have no confidence in government. But when we take resources to the places that are needed, how can you give Kasarani, which has over 300,000 people, the same resources as you give us a constituency with 11,000 people? We are failing. So as we budget, let us budget according to our pockets. As we then budget according to our pockets, then we actually look for ways to raise money. And as we look for ways to raise money, okay, let's also remember that we owe a lot of people. I want to know that Budgets and Appropriation budget that we have right now, the supplementary. Have we made sure that we're going to pay some pending bills? We have actually made our citizens very, very poor because we're not paying pending bills. So, you know, as a government, let me tell you, when I was looking at the South African elections and I saw how the DA party got so many votes, I'll tell you, there will come a time that the DA party will rule South Africa. And there will come a time that an independent candidate will be the president of this country. Because at the end of the day, people are getting poorer and poorer. No matter what we do, how are we going to change that? It starts with budgeting, and we have to have a human touch. Government might be a building, but the building is run by humans. And if we are leaders and we go out and ask for votes, let us start touching lives. Let us start saving lives. Let us start empowering and enriching our citizens. We need to do that. And if it's tightening the belt, let's even start with Parliament tightening its belt. I'm for every entity that needs to tighten its belt so that the citizens of this country can be enriched and empowered. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to the budget. I know many people have spoken, many of the members have spoken, and in all of it, members are actually supporting this particular motion. But I want to give a challenge to members of Parliament. In as much as we have the power to budget and appropriate monies to the various state departments, we also must take responsibility for ensuring that we are able to support the Kenya Revenue Authority to raise the resources to be able to ensure that we have the money to appropriate. And I want to give a few examples. And I think Honorable Dindi Nyoro, Chairperson for Budget, I also want to ask Honorable Badi, as Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, you have a responsibility to ensure that you not only take care of the resources that we have appropriated by ensuring that we don't lose the monies through corruption or misappropriation or carelessness or incompetence by public officers. And I want to give you a few examples as we appropriate. I know you have appropriated to the judiciary, for example. As we speak, Honorable Badi, the judiciary was appropriated money by this parliament many, many years ago to be able to rent a building called Elgon Place at Upper Hill. They refurbished the building at great cost to the exchequer, but they never occupied the building at all, ostensibly because they said there was radiation, even though The Communications Commission of Kenya confirmed that there was no radiation at that time. NEMA confirmed there was no radiation. In fact, the Kadhi Courts is housed at the same place. So how do you appropriate more money for courthouses to the same judiciary that has wasted money for 10 years to this day? So it is your responsibility as the Public Accounts Committee to ensure that as we appropriate money under budget, we ensure that we are also not wasting the same money. And if there is a state department that has wasted money, they should not be appropriated more money. You remember very well, there was a Judicial Performance Improvement Program that was funded by the World Bank, the highest amount ever given to a single department in the history of World Bank. I signed it myself when I was Chief Registrar. To this day, they abandoned all the buildings that were supposed to be built under that money. Why are you appropriating money to state departments that have wasted money? And that matter has come before your committee. I also want to ask, on the issues of collecting revenue, the Kenya Revenue Authority needs our support as Parliament. For example, we have a big challenge in this country where we have what they call consolidators, where you bring different types of goods in one container. That is where we lose revenue. Actually, some of the richest people in Kenya have made money from evading tax. And when this matter we tried as Parliament to ensure that we say that consolidation is for logistic purposes, not for tax collection purposes. What happened in that, wherever certain communities began to say, oh, you're attacking our people, they're going to lose revenue, you're attacking the business of our community. So it became a community issue, it became a tribal issue. So what did we do? We rendered Kenya Revenue Authority impotent. They are not able to correct the revenue. And just to tell you how we lose money under this consolidator system, for example, if I carry a backpack of iPhones into the airport, that is 1.5 million shillings of tax in that backpack. How much more is there in a 20-foot container and a 40-foot container? So as Parliament, we are busy appropriating money, but we are not supporting the Kenya Revenue Authority to raise those resources. We know that many of you, when you want to import something, you bring it through Isili, right? How much tax are you paying? How is it that they can deliver a car part to you at 15,000 shillings? So you actually see economies and certain parts of this country have been built on evading tax. So we must begin to ask ourselves the hard questions as we talk about tax. Another issue that I'd like to raise is, and I'm asking the PIC, the Public Accounts Committee, because we seem to think the budget process is a process of the Budget Committee. It's not. It is your responsibility, Honorable Badi. Because, for example, when I'm importing a vehicle into this country, I usually insure it. And if my vehicle is worth 4 million shillings, I will insure it for the value of 4 million shillings. And usually, we are required to use international insurance companies. But when we declare the value of that motor vehicle, I say it's 1 million shillings. So how much tax are we losing there? So one of the appeals I'll be asking members of Parliament, we must begin to make it compulsory that if you are insuring your imported goods, you insure with local insurers. That way, Kenya Revenue Authority can say, but you insured it for 4 million, and now you're telling me the value is 1 million. When you read that, we will begin to collect revenue. This country is capable of raising 1 trillion shillings just by correcting those two items that I have given. And I have very many, but there's no time to say that. If you look at the issue of ethanol, which is causing a lot of challenges with illicit brew in this country, the tax on a liter of ethanol is about 350 shillings, or maybe 320, I'm told. But in Tanzania, it's 40 shillings. In Uganda, it's 60 shillings. So what is happening? We are importing the ethanol into the country, but not into the country, but directly to either Uganda or Tanzania, and then smuggling it into Kenya. If we don't agree as the East African community to have one tax regime so that we don't have that issue, then we'll continue to lose revenue. So as we discuss the budget, can we please focus on also revenue collection? We must also learn that it's our responsibility as this House to protect the Commissioner General of KRA so that every time there are proposals, and it has happened over the years, there are proposals to try and collect more revenue, then we move into our tribal cocoons, because you'll hear the people in Isili saying, oh, unamaliza watu yetu, yeah, you're finishing our people. Then one point, the people in Kirinyaga Road start saying, oh, our business people from our community, from Central, are being finished. I even remember it was shocking, so a few years ago, in the last parliament, some people came to see me and they said, please help us. I said, what's the problem? They said, unajua sisi watu wa counterfeit tunamalizwa. Then I said, you are actually admitting that you want support to be able to continue with an illegal trade. So yes, as Parliament, we must begin to support revenue collection in as much as we so jealously guard our mandate to appropriate budget. Thank you. And I have much more to say, but I know I want to give opportunities to other members of Parliament to contribute to this. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the chance.
Honorable members, join me in welcoming students from Moi Girls Senior High School, Kajedo East Constituency, Kajedo County. Also join me in welcoming students from St. Monica Munyaka Girls Secondary School of Kieni Constituency, Nyeri, and students from Gaitu Secondary School, St. Olimenti, Meru County. They are all welcome to follow proceedings this morning. This chance now goes to the Honorable Member for Tharaka, Honorable Gitonga Murugara.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just before I make my representations.
What's out of order, Honorable Mbadi? The Honorable Murugara, just take your seat.
Yes.
It's the Honorable Gikari. What's out of order?
Honorable Speaker, I do understand that we have already started the debate, a very important debate on the supplementary budget. But Honorable Speaker, I want to request you to, standing order number 1, that you allow us some 5 minutes. Of course, the only person may be Honorable John Bade, because I know we benefit so much from his contribution after he's done. Maybe you could allow us, Honorable Speaker, maybe some 5 minutes for every member, so that we can be able to contribute towards this very important.
Yeah, that is all in
not
order.
Forgetting.
Thank you so much. That's all in order, but you know the drill.
Yes, I do.
You and I have been here since March 28,
I understand.
2013. You and I.
I just taken some pills.
Take your seat. Take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable Gikaria. You know what you have done earlier. This would have been done at the beginning of this. But I want to request members that when you give you a chance, to be fair to other members, try to use as little time as possible so that as many members as possible can contribute. The Honorable Murugara.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I stand, I'm also in agreement that we should actually take 5 minutes, but we are not bound by any rules because we need to start with that. I'll implore members and implore myself also to take 5 minutes, make a contribution so that as many members as possible can speak to this very important motion. May I begin by thanking the Budget Committee and the chairmanship of Honorable Ndidi Nyoro. They have done a fantastic job. I appeared before them. They were really grueling. They grilled us. They asked many questions. We were able to answer. And this is how this report has been made. Mr. Speaker, sir, the net effect of what we are doing is to reduce the budget allocations, and especially the budget on expenditure. And this is purely because we've not been able to attain the targets that were in the original budget. And this is the right thing to do, simply because we cannot borrow all the time so as to bridge up gaps in our budget. Therefore, sometimes we have to bite the bullet and go to reduce what we had budgeted for so that we are able to actually live within our means. We are not being overambitious. it is perfectly in order for a country to be ambitious, but if that ambition is not attained, then you make a tactical retreat by saying, I cannot attain this, let me make a reduction, and we move on. There are gains we are making in terms of our local currency, which is actually appreciating, and as a trade country, we should make use of this so that we are able to trade well, and especially in terms of imports, which are benefiting from these local currency gains. As we move on to even do the budget now, we must think of civil servants, including police officers, who are actually craving for salary increases because they're saying they're living in very poor conditions and their salaries are very poor. We must look into this. As we look into the fertilizer subsidy, we have actually spoken a lot about the fertilizer subsidy, and we are informed that the country, due to the long rains, which are actually very good, we are going to realize the fruits of the subsidy we have given for fertilizer. But we must again caution the criminals and the crooks out there who are finding an opportunity to exploit this subsidy so that they do not go on to do crooked things to try and sabotage such a noble idea on subsidy, on production, which is what our country is banking on. We have spoken about Article 223 of our Constitution, which allows the government to spend money on emergency without approval of Parliament. This is extremely important, and the government must stand warned that the only money to be spent under Article 223 is on emergencies. We've spoken about the emergencies of El Nino, the rains that we've been experiencing, the damage we have seen on our roads, on those who live near riverbanks, flooding and water view. And if any money has been spent on this, this is justified. We must speak for it. We must, as Parliament, approve that Article 223 does come in, and the government was right to make use of that article to spend money on the emergencies that we have experienced. There are demolitions that are going on, and every member of Parliament, especially from Nairobi, is speaking passionately about it on riparian sections, those who live within reserved areas. However, again, we must repeat, the government must be cautious. These are human beings. They must be treated with the utmost dignity. We even have entities that have old titles in respect of lands that neighbor riparian sections. The net effect is that we cannot have any challenge to those titles, and we must trend with caution. And finally, we've spoken about universities, and I must point out about my two universities, Tharaka University and Chuka University. These are in dire need of money. We must allocate money, even if it's not in the supplementary, in the main budget. Universities must be taken care of so that we are able to educate our children. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Hey, give him the microphone. Yes.
The member for Tharaka, well done. Just now goes the member for Dagoretti North, Honorable Lachi. I hope you do the same.
Yes, I will, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support and to appreciate our Chair of Budget and the team for, first of all, appreciating that the challenges we are facing, we have to, all of us, stand in the gap, and more importantly, to ensure, yes, we reduce the budgets. But Mr. Speaker, when you look at the whole budget that we are reducing, we have to also ask ourselves that we are reducing so much from the social side and leaving more on the defense side. And more importantly, that is where our people are suffering. That you find it's in the social sectors, it's in education, it's in health, that we need to increase resources so that we see. Yes, I'll appreciate we have given our community health workers, our promoters. I will appreciate we are looking at KMTC, but also in our House of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I think going forward, we have to ask ourselves, how many KMTCs do we have now? Can we try and now start working together so that students can just go across, then still, if we want to tighten our belt, then we have to tighten our belt in even building new schools. Instead of building new schools, why can't we look at the schools that we have and improve the infrastructure of those schools and see how children can go to those schools than every one of us wanting to build a complete new school. Yet we are saying we want to really work together. We want to ensure, because some of the schools you find now, you have 100 students, and you have a whole school, and you'll still need to maintain those schools to be better schools. And so, Mr. Speaker, today, even as we speak, and I want to speak for Nairobi, that indeed I know we have crisis of classrooms, we have all these challenges that are facing us. But for us, we also want to see that indeed we are improving academically. We have, yes, huge numbers of students in our schools, 5,000. And so even if I improve this school, I always know in the next 5 years, I have to look for maintenance. But we also must start to have a moral of ourselves in this house to believe that we were given by Kenyans the opportunity and the privilege to do budgets for them. We cannot see our people all the time when we're doing finance bill budgets. They have started now feeling agitated. They are all over. They are in crisis. Nobody knows. Any entrepreneur who's a startup cannot understand, how do I start a business and how do I survive in an environment that is not conducive to do business as Kenya. Yet we have decided to have a tariff that is within the East Africa. I will walk to Uganda, I will put in a company, I'll do everything and bring it in this country the same way. So why are we chasing away those people who would have done business in our country? Because our conducive environment for business right now is very hurting. And so for me, as much as we support, we must stand and we must be very courageous as Parliament to now tell the executive, our people here, they cannot go through this. And we have to do it unless we were not elected as the same executive. They were voted in, you were voted in. I have to stand for my people, fight for my people. For Nairobi, as I finalize, Mr. Speaker, there is no way we are going to do what we are doing. Yet we are the same people, starting from the county. They are the ones who will give you all the allocation letters that you need. You find somebody demolished. A whole place in Keleleshwa was on riparian land. Today, again, buildings are back there. So then you come and start hurting others, yet you can't see you are the one who has decided to show Kenyans you can return a building on a riparian land, and so every Kenyan will go on a riparian land. So it's very unfair what we are doing as leaders. And most of us are the ones with shops there, selling clothes and everything, but you want to finish Madare, you want to finish Ruaraka. I don't think it is right. Mr. Speaker, I support, but it is time this House must stand for what we were given by this Constitution. I beg to support.
Thank you. Member for Mungi West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity actually to add the voice on this supplementary budget. And from the onset, I will just take 2 minutes because I know members have got interest on this. Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by thanking the Chair Committee, Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, for the effort actually together with the members, the way they have done this supplementary budget based on what we have been experiencing in terms of economic issues in this country, Mr. Speaker. There are some few things we want actually to laud in terms of the higher education actually gaining on this supplementary budget. We have given them life, and we have noted there is increment in that aspect. The other issue, of course, is security, which has gained in terms of the National Police Services, and we are happy that when I read the speech of the President during Mandaraka Day, there is optimism this current financial year, and indeed we have enhanced the fertilizer subsidy, and the sugarcane farmers are also going to gain in this supplementary budget. The issue of victims who experienced the El Nino, and we are still experiencing El Nino in some parts of our country. Our people are still gaining on this. And more so, Mr. Speaker, for the welfare and the just government of the people, our bodyguards and drivers have gained in this supplementary budget. But Mr. Speaker, I am worried by how we have really reduced the government spending on infrastructure. This country has got so many stored projects, especially in the road sector. And every time we are actually planning, budgeting for this, we put a lot of money and eventually we end up removing. This one actually reduces certainty of the budget. In the future, we need actually to stop doing the new project and complete the projects we have already estimated in our budget. And we will make sure there are no white elephant projects in our country. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is we are doing supplementary budget just short of days before the end of the financial year. It is good the last supplementary budget be done at least 2 months before the end of the financial year, so that we can actually enable the users of this money to escalate the service to our Kenyans. And with those few remarks, I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Teso South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. From the onset, I rise to support the Supplementary Estimates 2 report. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important motion because the Supplementary 2 seeks to provide additional funding to cater for emerging priorities and emergencies. And Honorable Speaker, when I look at the recurrent expenditure, the increase in recurrent expenditure, that 8.71 is in the recurrent. And most of this money is in the State Department for ASAL. It is going directly to mitigating the El Nino rains impacts that we've witnessed across the country. So this is a very important motion. Honorable Speaker, besides addressing the emerging issues and priorities, when we do Supplementary 2, we are also basically adjusting, reviewing, and aligning. For example, when we did the budget performance, we noticed that there's serious underabsorption in some MDAs and institutions. So it is at this point then that we also align the budgetary allocations to budget absorption so that we reflect a true and current position. Honorable Speaker, at this point also we look at A projections. We know that institutions projected to collect certain amounts of money, but when we did again our budget performance for the 2023-2024, we realized that some institutions or MDS have under-collected, others have over-collected, have surpassed their projections. So again, the Supplementary 2 seeks to align and reflect the true figures in terms of what it should be in the estimates. So, Honorable Speaker, also in the increase in recurrent, some of that money, most of it is going to personal emoluments. And this cuts across various MDAs. Some of it is going to medical insurance for civil servants. Some of this money is even going to security operations. Some of this money we've been told is going to cater for allowances for our security and drivers that was in arrears. We did not have sufficient funding. So therefore, this is very critical. But also of concern, Honorable Speaker, are the reductions in development. The reduction in development funds especially is affecting development donor fund, partner funds. And Honorable Speaker, this is of concern because this may increase operational costs and we are told that this has been attributed by shortfalls in revenue collection. And talking of shortfalls in revenue collection, by April 2024, we had collected 2179.7 B against the projected 24.2.1 B. So what it means therefore going forward as a House, Honorable Speaker, as we even prepare to debate and engage in the estimates, budget estimates for financial year 24-25, as a House, we need to focus more on revenue-raising measures and how to further shrink our expenditure. And also, we need to look at areas of duplication, areas of overlaps. When we look at water, when we look at agriculture, when we look at health, there is a lot of overlap within the MDS that this House needs to address so that we help to shrink further the expenditure and therefore minimize the deficits. So, Honorable Speaker, I support other allocations to school feeding program, fertilizer subsidy, the sugarcane farmers. I think is all applauded, and I want to support the committee for a good job that we did as the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to join colleagues in appreciating this good work and make the following observations, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the budget, the supplementary budget, you realize that a few areas have been taken care of, which are critical and which are important to the Kenyans. The first one is there has been some increase of resources towards infrastructure for schools that was destroyed by floods. That is very good, Honorable Speaker. The only observation I want to make there is, as this money is being allocated, Honorable Speaker, we need to ensure that there is equity in the distribution of the resources, so that these resources, additional resources, are equitably shared, so that all parts of the country which were affected benefit. The second matter, Honorable Speaker, which is critical, is the issue of the pending bills. Pending bills are quite a thorn in the flesh of Kenyans. It's important that the committee has also factored in some resources to clear pending bills. My appeal is that we really look at those Kenyans who have been waiting for long for their bills to be cleared, so that they have their bills paid. And in that case, Honorable Speaker, I think we'll make sure that we don't have people who are just have pending bills as which were incurred last year being paid, and those with the 10 years not being paid, Honorable Speaker. The other issue, Honorable Speaker, is important is political parties have been allocated additional 200 million, which is critical for growth of democracy in this country. The reduction was 800, but now the increase is only 200. We understand matters of exchequer release might be a challenge in terms of if we are to give all the 800. But I think as we move to the future, Honorable Speaker, it is very important that we allocate resources for political parties if we want to grow our democracy. And this is a matter all of us as a House, we need to support so that our political parties become strong. With strong political parties, our democracy in this country will be growing, Honorable Speaker, and I think the country will be doing well politically. The other matter which I need to note, Honorable Speaker, there are also areas of concern. One of that is the reduction of resources towards infrastructure, the roads, Honorable Speaker. With the flooding, Honorable Speaker, which we have just experienced, it's unfortunate that resources for the roads to be reduced. We understand some were donor funded, and on the basis of that resources could not be accessed. But Honorable Speaker, we need now more resources going towards roads as opposed to reducing the resources. So I think in the estimates, we'll be factor more resources so that we develop the roads. Honorable Speaker, the other matter, which I think is worth mentioning, is the use of Article 223. Honorable Speaker, we continue to experience abuse of this article. And I think it is important as a country, Honorable Speaker, the executive does what it takes to reduce abuse of this article. If you look at this article, it only allows unplanned activities and emergency. And when you look at it at times, Honorable Speaker, you realize some of the expenditure items don't fall under that category. It's important as a country we take care of this. My last point, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, is the issue of development budget. You know, Honorable Speaker, the more we continue reducing the development budget in our supplementary budgets, the more we are not helping the economy to grow. If you look at the totality of what has been reduced in the development budget, it's such a huge figure that we should not be experiencing this. Even if it's the issue of absorption rates, Honorable Speaker, it is important that we use development budget to grow this economy. My last point, Honorable Speaker, is what the Deputy Speaker was saying, and I think it's very important. It is important in this country, Honorable Speaker, we tie the reports of Public Accounts Committee with the reports of the budget, so that those MDAs who have been picked as not using well the public resources through the Public Accounts Committee should not be getting more resources when we are budgeting. I think that has been a gap. We need to see that gap being sorted out by Public Accounts Committee sitting down with the Budget Committee when it comes to the estimates, so that we harmonize those two reports and we only allocate resources to areas where we think we are getting value for money. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Mbadi, you've heard what the Honorable Makali has said, and I know you now chair the Public Accounts Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me also make my contributions on this motion before us on the supplementary budget 2. And Mr. Speaker, we'll start by first saying that I know this is a very difficult time for the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and I want to congratulate the committee, which is led by the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, for scaling the stairs and chewing the gum at the same time. Because this is the time that they not only consider this supplementary budget 2 budget estimate, but also the main budget estimate, alongside other very important bills like the CARA and the DORA bills. But Mr. Speaker, having said that, I want to say the following. One, that even though we say that because of economic realities, that is why we are cutting the budget, the truth of the matter is that we deliberately, as a country, for years now, been not truthful in our budgeting process. I say so because the IMF conditionalities force the government of Kenya to mislead the public on the projected revenue collection. There is no single time as a country that we have been realistic in our revenue collection projections. What we do is we use projected ordinary revenue as a balancing figure. So what we do as a country, we project expenditure. After projecting expenditure, then we decide on how much we will get from external borrowing and domestic borrowing. Then the remaining amount we lump as projected revenue. That is dishonest, and I think IMF also stands accused for participating in this dishonesty and agreeing and allowing the country, the nation Kenya, to misreport their budgets. But having said that, as we say that the budget is being cut by 24 billion, and Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this because I know you also sit in the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Yes, we are cutting the budget by 24 billion, but where is the cut? The cut is on development expenditure at 75 billion shillings. And there is an increase in recurrent expenditure of 51 billion shillings. What is the justification for this? When we are cutting development budget, we are simply not growing the economy. And so when we cut budget for this year, we affect the following year. Because the economic growth for the present financial year is supposed to help and influence what is supposed to happen in the economy in the subsequent financial year. So it is not right to always and continuously reduce our development expenditure at the expense of recurrent expenditure. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that this House, we are being dishonest. We continue every cycle to complain about misuse of Article 223 of the Constitution. But we do nothing about it. In fact, we help the executive perpetuate this vice. I have proposed a legislation in this House, Mr. Speaker, to streamline and actualize and bring a statute to actualize Article 223 because it is too general. It is a blank check that we give the executive, more particularly Treasury, to misuse. You find that we use Article 223 even to buy land, like we did with Ruaraka land. That can never be an emergency. But when I made this proposal, Mr. Speaker, and it went to the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee initially was very receptive. When the Treasury appeared before the Finance Committee, they made a complete about turn and somersault. And then now that my bill has been rejected. Mr. Speaker, how on earth would a committee kill a legislation, a bill that is supposed to come to 349 members of parliament to make a determination and a decision on? And then we come here and complain how Article 223 is being misused. It is us who has allowed the executive to misuse this article at will and to actually steal from the people of Kenya and the taxpayers' money. Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, I want to mention that yes, I support allocation of money for flood mitigation and more particularly for reconstruction. The constituency I've represented for 15 years, Mr. Speaker, in this House, and which I continue to live in, and even hope to continue representing in future, Super South, we had the worst disaster that we have ever encountered as a constituency in Sindo, and we lost lives. I hope that this Mzee who lost the 3 children and lost his home, together with the land, because he could not even construct, even burying the 3 children on that land was not possible. Mr. Speaker, I had to use my money to acquire or purchase land for this Mzee. I hope he will be one of the people who will be given money for reconstruction so that he can build, can get land, because I only bought 1 acre for him, Mr. Speaker. This is a Mzee with a family of 10 children. He lost 3 in a day. He now has 7. He still needs to reconstruct his life. So this money should not be taken to some specific areas. It must be taken and given across the country. Mr. Speaker, we are giving money for fertilizer subsidy, but the same is being stolen. This House made a resounding decision on the Cabinet Secretary. What happened later? A few of us went and sanitized him. Mr. Speaker, these are the things we should not do, because the people of Kenya get fatigued with taxation. When their taxes are being misused, they get fatigued. They are not happy. When they see us as criminals who are participating in sanitizing people who are stealing their money. Finally, I have heard and I have listened and I agree and support what the Deputy Speaker said about ensuring that there is prudent use of resources. I support that. But Mr. Speaker, as we call upon Public Accounts Committee to come up and scrutinize these accounts, it should not be lost to this House that we are underfunding a very key institution called the Office of the Auditor General. If you look at the financial reports that we receive from the Office of the Auditor General, there is a rush in compiling those reports. There is a rush in auditing. We need more resources to this office so that they can do forensic and special audits, which are more detailed. In fact, the few special audits that I have before me, Mr. Speaker, before my committee, are so detailed, are so damning in their findings. But if you look at the financial audits, there is nothing. You are expecting Public Accounts Committee to bring damning reports in this House. From where? The Office of the Auditor General is not well resourced to do proper audit. Let us give that office money to do proper audit, come up with special audit, forensic audits, then this committee of mine, Public Accounts Committee, will be able to bring reports that can be used to control and manage corruption in this country. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support.
Member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this report by the Committee of Budget and Appropriations, led by Honorable Dean Dinyoro. And I've picked a few issues, Mr. Speaker, on the issues that this supplementary is focused on. And number one is education. And I think in basic education, we have had a major problem in terms of the Ministry of Education funding going to the schools, the issue of floods, the emergency response, because what we have seen is that many of these are left to CDF. And don't forget, we budget once a year. So we get sometimes that our proposals have already been approved by the board, have already been allocated to projects, and yet you're supposed to respond to emergency issues. I know schools in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, where we have to redo almost 3 or 4 classrooms for children to be able to attend classrooms, to attend classes. I've seen toilets that have sunk, and we have tried so much with CDF to do it, but it is not sufficient. It is about time that this is done properly from the ground, and I think the most important people in this process, not just the education officers, but also the NGAO, the national government officers on the ground, from the assistant chiefs, from the wazee wa nyumba kumi, from the chiefs, so that this information is actually budgeted for and money is spread across the country and not just in one region. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, that we need to actually focus on is the issue of overlap and duplication of duties. I know we have allocated some money on El Nino. We have allocated into different state departments. We have done that in the State Department of Roads. If you look at the supplementary, you see the State Department of Public Works, the State Department of Irrigation also has some money. And don't forget, we also have NDMA. So I hope that we'll be able to know what institution, what parastatal, what state department does what. Because if we don't get accountability, Mr. Speaker, as has been said before by other speakers, our problem is not even the collection of money in this country. It is how it is spent. The prudence and actually the accountability of this money, because you allocate El Nino money to different state departments, you allocate to NDMA, the county has another budget, you hear 2% of their budget goes to emergency. We also have some money, 2% from CDF going to emergency. There has to be a synergy way of getting to know what exactly has been done and how we can be able to track this. But more important, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the oversight and overlap of mandate, especially even in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I don't see the reason why even the CSs in this country will have to scramble to go to the Senate in the morning and come to the National Assembly in the evening, because it was meant to actually increase accountability, Mr. Speaker. You see the Senate focused on the issues that are supposed to be for this House, Mr. Speaker, and yet the counties are struggling with accountability issues. I think we'll have to get to a point, Mr. Speaker, where we are actually clear that the governors should be the ones actually appearing before the Senate and answering the issues of accountability, so that we have the cabinet secretaries appearing before this House. Otherwise, this overlap will keep being a circus, and you'll get a CS even called in a committee in this House, and they'll say they appeared to the Senate on the same issue, Mr. Speaker. And at the end of the day, they know they don't have any mandate in terms of allocation of resources or even any censure motion in the Senate. It cannot go through, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of health, I think we still have a long way to go, and I've seen some of the issues being addressed through the supplementary. I'm hoping through the main budget that many of the issues, especially on the referral hospitals, will be dealt with in terms of the budget, because the idea of having referral hospitals, Mr. Speaker, is that we only take the very major diseases to the referral hospitals. If the health centers and the dispensaries were to be working, and that is what the county government should be focused on, ensure that the dispensaries are working so that the issues of immunization of children is taken to the dispensaries. The issue of antiretroviral ARVs, Mr. Speaker, is taken to the dispensary. The issues of malaria, issues that can be managed at the local level, should not get to the referral hospitals. That way, Mr. Speaker, we will be able to free the referral hospitals to be able to actually attend to the major issues, Mr. Speaker. And I've seen on this supplementary budget that we have even a backup generator, say, for Kenyatta Hospital. And I think most people in this country, right now, health is in a limbo, because SHIF is not very well rolled out. The transition from NHIF to SHIF is not very smooth. So we are having very many fundraisers. I don't think there is any member of this parliament who's not having a fundraiser every weekend for a sick person, for a hospital bill, for a body that is held in a mortuary. So we need to get this transition done very well so that we are able to actually ensure that SHIF is working. The issue of Linda Mama, Mr. Speaker, you find that we still have a long way, because Linda Mama was supposed to actually take care of prenatal, the birth, and prenatal, Mr. Speaker. But right now, it is still at a limbo. We are having mothers struggling in terms of giving birth, and we still have a long way to go. The issue of the university funding, Mr. Speaker, I see there is an increase here, but there is a bigger issue in terms of the funding of the universities. Right now, because many children are supposed to choose their courses, or many young people choose their courses this week and next week, we still have them not sure what is happening in the funding model. So I hope that even as we look at the supplementary, we look at the bigger policy issue through the Committee of the Education, to ensure that this is working well, because as it is right now, it is not. And it is actually causing jitters. It is causing families to actually become destitute, trying to get money, to raise money to take their children to the university. There is much to say, Mr. Speaker, but I see we also have time constraints, so I'll leave it at that, and I support. Thank you.
The member for Kiambaa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this bill, the supplementary budget. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to congratulate Budget and Appropriation Committee and our chair, led by Honorable Ndende Nyoro, because, you know, we really worked very hard to make sure that this budget and this supplementary has been up to date. Mr. Speaker, there are issues that we were able to address in regards to supplementary, and where we made it sure that, you know, we have appropriated money to make sure that certain ministries have been able to get some budget allocations to support them, especially on the issue of emergency, Mr. Speaker. And you realized, as our country, we had a situation whereby we were told about the El Nino, and the El Nino came before we could plan for it, and it had to force the Treasury and the ministries concerned to make sure that they have, you know, some emergency money to deal with the El Nino and to deal with the flood, Mr. Speaker. This issue has really affected a lot of people, especially to make sure that our people have blankets, they have places to call home, because all of their homes and areas that probably were affected by this flood, Mr. Speaker, they were not able even to salvage anything as far as those issues are concerned. In my constituency, I have areas that were seriously affected by the flood, Mr. Speaker. We had areas in Mathare that were affected also by this flood. We have areas in Taita Tana River, and therefore it was prudent for us as a committee, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we budget and we allocate funds for emergency, to make sure that we assist and help our people who are in dire need of this money, Mr. Speaker. We were able to allocate money. We were able to make sure that the concerned ministries, especially even on schools which were destroyed by floods, Mr. Speaker, we appropriated about 450 million to assist these schools so that they can be able to rebuild the schools and make sure that these students and our people are back to schools, Mr. Speaker, without any hindrance, because it was something that was not planned for. We didn't see it coming, but we had to make sure that we plan for the budget, make sure that they have enough resources so that they can rebuild the infrastructure, so that after the El Nino, Mr. Speaker, our students can be able to go back to school and maybe gain knowledge, so that, because we believe in our education system, Mr. Speaker, and we believe that our children are the next leaders of this republic, Mr. Speaker. We allocated about 450 million to make sure we will innovate the infrastructure as part of it in this supplementary, Mr. Speaker. We were able also to allocate money for insurance for the policemen, Mr. Speaker. Our policemen have been doing a great job to this Republic of Kenya. And every time we have insecurity issues, we always go to them for assistance. And therefore, it was important for the committee to make sure that we appropriate money for their insurance. They risk their lives, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes when we are fighting with the bandits, when they are making sure that our country is secure, the borders of our nation are also secured, Mr. Speaker. The insecurities within our villages, those are the people we go for and call for their help, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it was important for the committee to make sure we appropriate money, we appropriate the insurance fund, so that these police officers can be insured in case of any emergencies within the line of duty, or probably they are sick. They have a place. They don't have to be thinking about keeping the security of our nation, and at the same time, they are thinking on how they're going to be paying the hospital bills for them and their children, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when the Committee on Security came, we thought it is prudent for us to make sure we appropriate money for their insurance, Mr. Speaker, and to make sure that they have a place, they have a safety net in case of any emergency. You know, Mr. Speaker, when someone has eaten and you have food on the table, the next worrying thing, Mr. Speaker, is anything to do with the health. And therefore, we budgeted that money and we made it sure, and we told even the committee. And also, we want to say it because it was among the policies that we said that every ministry should make sure that the first charge within their budget, Mr. Speaker, is anything to do with the pending bill. We were able to put 300 million for LELEC because in the main budget, we're going to have 50 million per constituency. So we thought it is prudent for us to give them 300 million to start preparing the infrastructure so that when this money comes on board, Mr. Speaker, they are able to, to absorb and to assist us in our constituencies and make sure that the different committees, different constituencies, Mr. Speaker, are able to absorb the money and they have the infrastructure that is needed for us to be able to help our people, especially on the last mile, on the issues of transformers, on the issue of street rights, Mr. Speaker. We were able to appropriate, Mr. Speaker. And the last one was the food for primary schools, Mr. Speaker. We made it sure that there is money for food for our primary school kids, Mr. Speaker. Because for us to retain our students in schools, it is important for us to appropriate and to make sure they have a budget so that at least when they go to school, some of these kids, they sleep hungry and they make sure that they go to school because they'll get a plate of food, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, we did a good job, and I want to congratulate the Budget and Appropriation Committee. I'm a member there, and I support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me begin by saying that I support the appropriations. I support this motion on the supplementary estimates. Honorable Speaker, as I support it, let me highlight the following issues. The first one, Honorable Speaker, is that it is very difficult to make a budget when it is very glaring that the resources that are, the revenue side is not meeting the targets. Honorable Speaker, as we went through this process, we realized that one of the challenges that this country is going to face going forward is the fact that our KRA is not meeting the targets, revenue targets as defined by this House. And Honorable Speaker, this is happening despite this House going through the last Finance Act, and now we are having the current finance bill which we are going through, which has outlined various tax measures which propose to realize more revenues in the end. Honorable Speaker, the reason why this supplementary estimate is before us is because of failure to meet about 250 billion of projected revenues. Honorable Speaker, this is the reality of the matter, and this House needs to be aware that even if we have those ambitious projects which we want to achieve as a country, we will never achieve them if we do not meet the revenue targets. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, that is the first point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make, Honorable Speaker, is that there is the question of increasing recurrent expenditure and reducing development expenditure. Honorable Speaker, all the supplementary budgets that I've gone through, that I've seen since I became a member of this House, they always target to reduce development expenditure, at the same time increasing recurrent expenditure. And tied to that, Honorable Speaker, is the question of something which is now known as exchequer. Honorable Speaker, you are aware that even as we went through these supplementary estimates too, we realized that development expenditure has not happened since the start of this financial year. because of what is called lack of exchequer. Honorable Speaker, if you are going to look at budget implementation, then you realize that the economy will not be able to perform as projected because we are tending to implement development expenditure at the tail end of the year. Honorable Speaker, I was hoping that you listen to me, but the Speaker is distracted. Honorable Speaker, please listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, that there's a question of exchequer which is affecting development expenditure in this country, so that you realize that the development budget will be implemented towards the tail end of the financial year. And this is going to affect the way the economy is going to perform based on how we project the resources. So I wanted to emphasize, Honorable Speaker, that going forward, as a House, we need to find a way in which we can be able to implement our development projects early enough before the end of the financial year so that we can see real development happening for our people. Honorable Speaker, lastly, there is something called confidential account in many ministries.
Honorable Batandi, there's a point of order from Honorable Masara. Honorable Masara, what's out of order? Oh no.
Okay.
Honorable Didimas Barasa.
Honorable Speaker.
What's out of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Looking at the members who have contributed on this motion, they are in support of this motion, and this is a clear indication that the Chair Budget and Appropriation and his team did a very good job, and it's against this background, Honorable Speaker, that are 95, so that you can call the mover to reply. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Kimilili has on his seat and requested that we ask the mover to reply. Is it the mood of the House that the mover replies? Order. The Honorable Soro, you'll take your seat. This will be decided by yourself as members. And order. The Honorable Soro, take your seat. Members, you know very well that today and tomorrow we are debating almost similar matters. After this particular matter, the one next is the revision of revenue bill. Then we'll be followed by the main estimates for next financial year. So those who don't get a chance now, I'm sure can get a chance in the next. But this is your decision to make. So I will therefore put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as another opinion say aye? Will as opinion say nay? So the ayes have it. I therefore call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I want to assure my colleagues that the next motion is actually the same in terms of talking notes. And therefore, when they get a chance, they can utilize the same points on the same two, the next two. That is the mediation report, and in the afternoon, the main budget. Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
Honorable members, I therefore now put the question. I'm trying to get there. It is. Members, I therefore put the question that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the second supplementary estimate for the financial year 2023-2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 4th of June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution, and Standing Order 243, Roman 1 approves an increment of the total current expenditure for financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 51,113,484,433 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule. 2, approves a decrease of the total capital expenditure for financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 75,290,535,117 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule. And 3, approves an overall decrease in the total budget financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 24,177,000,000 50,684 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule. And number 4, approve the Kenya shillings 23 billion 667 million 17,803 spent under Article 223 of the Constitution in respect of the votes outlined in the third schedule. And finally, resolve that the first schedule forms the basis for the introduction of the Supplementary Appropriation Bill. I will ask many of the court of opinion say nay. Ayes have it. Before we go to the next order, I would allow the chairman of the Budgets Committee to table a document that he says he has.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 5th June 2024. Report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 and the medium term, and the compendium of departmental committee reports on the consideration of the annual estimates. Honorable Speaker, if you permit, I can also request members who will be debating the budget for 2024-2025 in the afternoon. And therefore, members, it's well that you are guided. That is a major item in the afternoon. And as you are aware, it's one of the primary reasons we register it. I thought that's information that is appropriate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Lydia approach and table the document, as it were. Table it. You're supposed to. The chairman, BSC, you know what to do. What you did just before you tabled was not the thing to do. You give notice formally. I know you're giving notice colloquially, but now give notice formally.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. That was for the tabling. Honorable Speaker, I wish to request that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Notice of motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Notice of motion on the consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 and the medium term. That this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure and the medium term for the financial year 2024-2025, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 5th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution, Section 39 of Public Finance Management Act 2024, and the standing order, and the standing order 239, 1, approves the issuance of a sum of Kenya shillings 2,392,832 million. Mr. Speaker, let me repeat. Approves the issuance of a sum of Kenya shillings 2,392,832,508,617 from the consolidated fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2025 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to paragraph 3, that is the committee of reply. 2, makes the policy and financial resolutions as contained in the second schedule of the order paper. 3, order that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, consideration of estimates in the committee.
Thank you so much, Chair. You gave the notice. You gave the notice and proceeded to even read the notice itself. You'll do all that again in the afternoon, but the notice is duly given for the debate in the afternoon. The next order.
Order number 16, motion, the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024.
Chair, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to beg that pursuant to the provision of Article 1132 of the Constitution and the Standing Order 153, that this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill, that is National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 4th June 2024, and approves the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, that is National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024. Honorable Speaker, and I would request that the consultations can be lower, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if it's possible, the consultations are a bit loud.
All members allow the chairman of budget to move the motion.
Honorable Speaker, I wish also to thank the members of this House because they gave us a role as the mediation team that was appointed by the Speaker to negotiate with the Senate on a mediation committee because there were different figures, Honorable Speaker, insofar as Division of Revenue is concerned. Honorable Speaker, Division of Revenue, Honorable Speaker, appropriates the money that goes into the national government and counties vertically. And Honorable Speaker, it is a very important component in the budget making process because it is then that gives way for the appropriation of the budget, because we only appropriate when we know exactly the monies that are coming to the national government, Honorable Speaker, and also to the county governments. Honorable Speaker, we have a budget of around 4 trillion shillings, which we'll be tabling later today in the afternoon, and actually debating. We've already tabled. We'll be debating in the afternoon, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, as members of this House know, there are roles that are designated for the national government and the others for the county governments. Honorable Speaker, because I want to take very little time, I want to thank the kind of togetherness and unity of purpose that we witnessed in the mediation committee, led by the National Assembly as representing the Honorable Speaker, and the Senate led by Honorable Kadhuri Morongi. Honorable Speaker, we met for many hours, late at night, to discuss about the amount of money that will be going into our counties as equitable share. Honorable Speaker, equitable share comes from shareable revenue. And Honorable Speaker, as we are debating this motion today, and even as we table the report, Honorable Speaker, we have seen a lot of improvements in our counties. Most of the governors are doing their best insofar as providing the critical services that are devolved is concerned. But we also noted in the mediation committee running through many hours that our county governments need more resources to be able to function optimally. And I say so, Honorable Speaker, because there are some elements that we have been able to partner as national government together with county governments, Honorable Speaker, and they need more resources for them to optimally partner with the national government, and especially when it comes to industrial centers that you are building in every constituency, into community health promoters, and any other such very important, critical, and some socio investments, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when we met as a mediation committee, Many times people, when they see the name mediation, what comes to the mind is that there is a case. And when there is a case, there is the we and them. But Honorable Speaker, one thing that I want to report to this House is the kind of, as I said before, unity of purpose that we witnessed. We actually realized we were speaking the same language, the National Assembly and the Senate. And we had to consult with the Executive, Honorable Speaker, because this is a weighty matter. And I want to also thank our leaders led by the President, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, for specifically pronouncing himself about the support for devolution. In our consultations, Honorable Speaker, the President was very categorical that this administration is an administration that supports devolution, and we must do everything possible to support our county governments in running efficiently and optimally. When we went for mediation, Honorable Speaker, the Senate had proposed a figure of 415 billion Kenya shillings as equitable share. Honorable Speaker, the Commission for Revenue Allocation had suggested a figure of 398 billion Kenya shillings, approximately. This House, Honorable Speaker, had proposed a figure of 391 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, approximately again. Honorable Speaker, when we met, because this House, the National Assembly of the 13th Parliament, supports devolution, because the Senate has got very, very good, intelligent people, Honorable Speaker, who are supporters of devolution, and because we have a president who is all out in supporting devolution, Mr. Speaker, after the negotiations, after the mediation, I want to report to this House that, in fact, this House will go into history as the House that actually walks the talk in support for devolution, because we have been able to increase the equitable share from 385 billion shillings, Honorable Speaker, to a historic, Honorable Speaker, figure of Kenya shillings, 401 billion Kenya shillings equitable share that will be going into our counties. Honorable Speaker, for this to happen and for this to be successful, it is important for me to acknowledge the Council of Governors, led by Governor of Kirinyaga, Governor Anne Waiguru. She has been attending the meetings before for mediation. We have talked about this matter, and she has pronounced herself very clearly in terms of getting more resources for our county governments, and she also did a lot for us to get to this figure. Honorable Speaker, again I want to repeat that we have an unprecedented figure, a historic figure of 401 billion Kenya shillings that will be going into our counties, Honorable Speaker, as equitable share. That means better services in healthcare. That means more efficient services in agricultural sector. That means more money in hiring ECD teachers, Honorable Speaker. It means more money for county roads. It means more money, Honorable Speaker, for all the devolved functions. Honorable Speaker, we foresee that this figure may increase because there is a process currently of unbundling some of the shared services and functions. Still, the national government retains a lion's share in healthcare. It retains quite a huge amount in agriculture. There is a process that is currently ongoing of unbundling those services so that county governments can actually get more resources when functions are truly and fully transferred to the county governments. Honorable Speaker, I wish to state those facts. And I know Honorable Soro is looking for me, but Honorable Nyakundi had already taken the cue to second the motion, and I request Honorable Zafed Nyakundi to second this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. First of all, I also want to thank the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee and the chairman, the co-chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee in the Senate, who was Honorable Murungi, in making sure that the mediation process that we had between the National Assembly and the county and the Senate on the Division of Revenue Bill has come to a success. This is the first time historically that the money that is going to the county, the shareable revenue, hits a 400.18 billion Kenya shillings. This is the money that is going to assist us in our county governments. As the national government and as the national government, we want to assure the county government that we support devolution. The President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, supports devolution, and that is the reason today we are smiling on the money that is going to the county government. This money that is going to the county government will go a long way in paying pending bills. Most of these county governments have a lot of pending bills. This money, 400.1 billion, that is shareable revenue, will go in paying pending bills that most of our contractors, most of our business people who do business with county government and have not been paid are able to be paid, because most of them have lost their property, most of them have lost lives because they have not been able to be paid. Number two, county government will now be able to pay the ECD teachers, will now be able to employ ECD teachers, and will now be able to build more classes for our ECD classes. This money that goes to the county government, the 400.1 billion, will go a long way in making sure that the county government are able to put drugs in these hospitals, because we've seen most of these hospitals do not have drugs. Most of these hospitals are not well equipped. This money will assist in building more healthcare facilities, in building level 1 hospitals, in building level 2 and level 3 hospitals together with dispensaries. We want to assure the county government that the national government will make sure we assist the county government in making sure that all the devolved functions are working well and prudent, in making sure that all the county roads that are there are done properly, by making sure that we've given them enough money, that these county roads are able to be motorable. These county roads, our farmers are able to take their produce to the markets. Our farmers are able to make sure that they use roads that are well motorable. These will also go a long way in making sure that in the agriculture sector, we are able to employ agriculture extension officers that are able to assist farmers in the village and are able to subsidize more on the fertilizer that the national government has been able to subsidize fertilizer, and the county government should also assist in making sure that the fertilizer that we have subsidized, also they subsidize further. They are also making sure that the aggregation and industrial parks that we have started are going to work, and our farmers are going to be assisted, and our farmers are able to get value addition, because if we build these agriculture industrial parks, our farmers are able to get value addition on the products and the produce that they are producing. So I want to support this motion, and I want to thank the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, for making sure that he supports devolution, for making sure that the county government are able to get enough money to make sure that they are able to work efficiently and effectively. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Thank you. Members, before I propose the question, join me in welcoming the students from Machakos Girls High School who are seated in the public gallery. They are welcome to follow our proceedings today. Members, I wish to propose the question that, pursuant to the provisions of Article 113(2) of the Constitution and Standing Order 153, this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 4th June 2024, and approves the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024. Now, the first person to have a bet at this chair would be the Honorable Tandi, for obvious reasons.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, which has been ably presented by my chairman, the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, Chairman, Budget and Appropriations. Honorable Speaker, I was part of the mediation team that midwifed this report, and together with the team that represented the National Assembly, led by the co-chair Ndindi and also the chair, the other co-chair from the Senate, the Honorable Kaduri Murungi from Meru County. I want to say that this is one of the best reports that this House is going to pass, and the amount of money which we have given to the counties has now passed the 300 figures. So, Honorable Speaker, this is really a substantial amount which, if well utilized by our counties, we are going to see development in the counties. Honorable Speaker, as we discuss this mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that the shareable revenue to counties is not subject to supplementary. That even if the revenue focus is not achieved, the money allocated to counties is never changed. So therefore, it is it's stable money, which counties really have no excuse. Because whereas we are going to amend we are going to have supplementary budgets here in response to shortages of revenues, the money is going to counties does not change. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, is that there are some functions which have not been properly devolved. And this is something which this House needs to take very seriously. Even as we pass the budgets here, there are some budgets that are still being held by national government against the Constitution. So I think this is something which we need to really be serious about and ensure that all those functions which were constitutionally meant for counties, they need to be done by counties. Again, if this is done, Honorable Speaker, then we are not going to have this conflict when we are sharing revenues vertically between national government and counties. Because the argument which has been advanced by governors and even the Senate is that there are so many functions which we are still holding up here, which actually should go to the counties. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, we are I think in the 13th year of devolution. And Honorable Speaker, there are some counties that are still ashamed. If you go to some counties, Honorable Speaker, you wonder whether they have been receiving these billions of resources. And I think at this stage, let us also use this forum to caution counties and some governors that we are not going to see them misuse resources or lazing around and failing to implement development projects for the benefit of our people. Devolution was created so that our people in the grassroots are supposed to benefit and to grow. But, Honorable Speaker, many governors are corrupt. Honorable Speaker, many governors are corrupt. They live large. They are not implementing development projects. Honorable Speaker, if you go to some counties, I don't want to mention their names, nursery children don't even have, classrooms, ECD classrooms. They don't exist, But governors are running around in convoys, big convoys, Honorable Speaker, there's a governor who traveled to a foreign country, or a convoy of more than 100 staff, Honorable Speaker. So this is something which we really we need to talk about, Honorable Speaker. Even as we give them resources, we must ensure that there's a way in which we are going to check how they're using the resources. Honorable Speaker, I don't think senators are doing a good job in terms of oversighting counties. That is my personal view, because if they were doing a good job, then we would be able to see and ensure that these counties are performing the resources we give them. But senators are only interested in, backbiting National Assembly. They want to do the roles that we're supposed to be doing here, oversighting national government, but they have left counties to die, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, let me say that let devolution work for our people. And if they cannot work for our people, we can discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Nikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, this is a basic issue, and I would implore the chair of the Budget Committee to listen to me. The fact that the committee noted the need of the counties, that is the basic issue. The basic issue here is not whether people support devolution or not. The basic issue is the process of the BPS. When we do the BPS, Mr. Speaker, we have tremendous amount of details from the national government telling us in great detail what the needs of the national government is, department by department, agency by agency. At that time, the National Assembly has no idea completely what the needs of the counties are. So to a large extent, the BPS is a document of the National Assembly. In fact, it's a document of the national government and not a document of the country. So that when we come to the division of revenue, which is a direct product of the budget policy statement, we are actually guided by only two factors. Factor number one is the constitutional 15%. Then factor number two is from the allocation of revenue commission, whose details we do not know when we are discussing this at the National Assembly. So what happens, Mr. Speaker, is we, depending on those two factors, we come with a figure without knowing what the needs of the county governments are. So the chair of the committee is right when he says that when they sat down, now they started to see the needs of the county governments. And they are accounting ECDs, they are counting health, they are counting irrigation, they are counting water. That is because we missed that information when we are discussing the budget policy statement. And that is where the division of revenue bill comes from. So unless we look at that factor, Mr. Speaker, this thing will be perennial. We will always be having a mediation in this process because the Senate actually has a better insight of what the needs of the counties are than us. And they understand emotionally, constitutionally, that it is their duty to support the counties. Therefore, they delve to find out what is it they need. The National Assembly at that time has no information. So then we make the decision of the division of revenue on that basis. And therefore we have to wait until they refuse. Then we sit down, and that is when we start to have an inkling as a National Assembly, and not the whole National Assembly, only those who are involved in the negotiation. So this is where the problem is. And actually it is a reflection that we have not actually implemented the devolution process properly. It also relates to what happens to the ministries. Look at ministries where we say they're devolved, but they still have national functions. Look at health, look at agriculture, look at water, look at even fisheries. There's still a lot of money that is actually being allocated at the national level, while these functions are actually agreed to have been devolved. Now, where is the link where the national government and the county governments actually meet and see the needs of each other? The Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee actually, in my view, is not working. It's not working. The Council of Governors, the Secretariat, and the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee are actually fighting each other. They are not working together. So where does the national government get to know the problems of the counties? The technical officers at the county, where do they get an insight in the process of the policies that will affect what they implement? So, Mr. Speaker, that is the problem, and that's what we need to address. And where can we address it? IBEC. Because it is IBEC that there is this meeting, and I'll actually talk to the chair of the budget committee because I really wanted to listen to this. If IBEC would then come with the details that we require and come to us at the time of discussion, we may actually solve this problem and we may not have these negotiations year in, year out, because we'll have then seen the needs at National Assembly when we are discussing the division of revenue bill. So
Thank you, Chair. I hope the Chair Budget got that. The member for Kimilili. And members, like I said earlier, there are members who started queuing at 9:30. and they are on this queue. So I'm going to follow the queue the way it is.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to contribute to this very important bill in this country. And for the first time, Honorable Speaker, I want to agree that Kenya as a country, we are progressing. I say so because it is for the first time since devolution was implemented in this country that the revenue that we are actually sending to the county has crossed the 400 billion mark. This is actually 24.4% of the last audited account, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is progressive. And I am convinced, I am confident that in the near future, we will even hit the ceiling set by the Constitution of 45%, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, while there have been some outcry about some governors living large, not living within the expectations that are expected of them by the members of their respective counties to properly utilize these devolution funds well, I want to agree that not all counties are not accountable to the people, Honorable Speaker. That indeed we have some counties that the governors are really stretching their hand beyond the normal, that they are usually properly utilizing these funds in improving the lives of the people of those counties. So we cannot therefore use the behaviors of a few governors who are not spending this money prudently to blanketly condemn all the governors in this country. Devolution has done wonders in most of the counties in this country. And I think from what I said that this country is progressing forward well, I am 100% convinced that in the near future, all the 47 governors, all the 47 county governments will actually begin to utilize this devolution money well so that we can improve the life of the Kenyan people going forward further. I also want to take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to thank all the members of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, who have been burning midnight oil to refine this Division of Revenue bill. And I may not necessarily want to thank the Chair of Budget and Appropriation Committee, the Honorable Ndini Nyoro, because his competence and that one of the members of this committee are actually expected. We expect that they will do well, because, Honorable Speaker, they have always been a blessing to this country. They have responded to the call of duty when called upon by our Constitution to do these things, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I finish in contributing to the Division of Revenue Bill, I will want the County Government Act to be amended so that they follow the same procedures of project proposal approval, the way we do with our CDF. There are no projects that can be abandoned even when members of Parliament or the CDF committees changes from year after year, Honorable Speaker, because the laws of NGCDF Act will actually not allow that new projects can be funded without first completing the previous one. So I think these issues of having so many pending bills and so many projects that have been abandoned by the county governments, they should be a thing of the past if we can refine those laws to ensure that no new project can be initiated without first completing the previous one, regardless of whether they were initiated by the previous governor who was short, who was tall, who was black, who was light-skinned or not. Because all those projects are funded from the exchequer. They are funded by the people of, from the taxpayers of these people of this country, and they need to be completed, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, it is important that that one should be put into consideration. And also, most importantly, Honorable Speaker, that we should also have a law that prevents governors who are exiting offices from overcommitting the budget by launching serious projects that require too much money, which later on they are pardoned when the new governor comes in, Honorable Speaker. With these very few remarks, I support this bill. Thank you.
Member for Sigoet, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity you've also given me. so that I can express my support for the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill. At the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your pronouncement that we members of Parliament who come and queue from 9 in the morning should get a fair opportunity to be able to speak to the issues that are being debated. All said and done, Mr. Speaker, the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill is a product of intense discussions between the Senate and the National Assembly. And we want to thank Honorable Ndindi Njoro and the co-chair who have actually made sure that at least we get this bill before the National Assembly so that we can be able to release monies to the counties for them to be able to do their projects. As we do so, Mr. Speaker, I want to be on record to say the National Assembly, and indeed most of us as members of the National Assembly, we do support devolution. Even as we do support devolution, Mr. Speaker, we do not support pilferage, we do not support wastage, we do not support corruption. Those are virtues which we as the National Assembly must continue to fight. We also want to clear the impression that we do not support devolution as a National Assembly. Indeed, we support devolution much as the Senate supports devolution. And I want to thank the people of this country for their wisdom which they put into the 2010 Constitution. They created a bicameral parliament that is horizontally divided, Mr. Speaker. They did not create the upper house, they did not create the lower house, they did not create the House of Lords, they did not create the House of Commons, they created a bicameral parliament that works for the welfare of the people of this country. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to touch on two issues as I wind up my contribution. Issue number one is on agriculture, and I want the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee to listen to me. Agriculture is a devolved function. Can I have your attention, Mr. Speaker, can I have the attention of the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee? Agriculture is a devolved function. Much as it's a devolved function, Mr. Speaker, we do not know as a country the aggregated amount of money that is devolved to agriculture. We at the national level are appropriating close to 4% of our budget to agriculture. How much of the budget is being devoted by the county governments? How much of that is coming from our partners at the international level who support agriculture? That we need to know, so that, Mr. Speaker, as a country, we want to know whether we get to the 10% threshold, which was given by the Maputo Declaration on expenditure to agriculture. If you look at the economic growth of this country in the last 1 year, Mr. Speaker, the economy grew by 5.6%. The contribution of agriculture is around 19.8%, around 20%. And if we invest more in agriculture, Mr. Speaker, then we should be able to spur the economic growth of this country. At the moment, internationally, we rank number 2 in terms of growth in GDP. We can be able even to get to number 1 if we spend more money in agriculture. And the chairman of Budget and Appropriations Committee noted that we are giving $4 billion in his presentation earlier on subsidies of fertilizer. Mr. Speaker, I'm of the view that as we subsidize fertilizer, we should also subsidize seed and seedlings. The two of them go concomitantly in terms of agricultural production in this country. And finally, Mr. Speaker, on roads, the roads that belong to the national government must be spelled out by Kenya Roads Board. And those roads that belong to the county governments must be spelled out so that we don't get into a situation where we conflict on whose responsibility it is to do a particular road. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Baringo. Member Baringo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I also want to...
For Laffy, I said I'm going to follow the list. You're actually 4th, 5th from the list that I have. So stop carrying your hands every now and then when I give someone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to declare that I'm a member of the budget, and I must say we did a good job, specifically on this mediation in the counties. Mr. Speaker, just like most members have said, that for the first time, we have considered the 410 billion to the counties because of mostly because of the needs that were brought before us during the mediation. And most thing that was proposed was the pending bills. We realized that most counties of Kenya today is so much dependent on debts, and pending bills is becoming a problem, and it's seriously hindering development within the counties. Mr. Speaker, the proponents of the Constitution 2010, in my opinion, should have considered many things when they were establishing these counties in Kenya. Today, if we are not very careful, this country of ours is going to go into deep problems because of the mismanagement of the counties today. If you realize, almost every things or programs that is being done, or the activities mainly, specifically like education, for instance, it is becoming so hard to realize that most of the education qualities of education, the quality of education in this country is doing very poorly. And you remember and you know that education starts from ECD, which is 100% work of the counties. And when you visit these counties, you realize most of the time the ECD or education in the counties is deteriorating so much, which results to a lot of illiteracy in the country. And that is why when we allocate this money, we expect the counties to step up, specifically in enhancing the quality of education, build structures that can help our children to go and have good quality of education. Also, we realize that there is a need of paradigm shift in management. I realize to some extent that most governors, I think it's because we elect these governors, that the way they execute most of the work is so much skewed to the extent that one part of the counties gets development at the expense of others. And this one gives that discrepancy so much that the counties might not be able to develop equally. And Mr. Speaker, if you realize also, corruption is becoming a problem. And it's like we developed most of the corruption habits to the counties, and it has impaired or the development of the counties. We have problems in the, production, and which to me, specifically agriculture, you realize instead of us continuously producing, we are continuously consuming, which has needed the coffers. And I mean, all the time we realize that we need a lot of money so that we can support the counties, specifically in areas of healthcare systems is actually also so much affected. And this way, we thank the president because of allowing us through the committee to, add and give at least this 400 billion to the counties for more support. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr.
For Samburu West.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this opportunity to support the mediated version of the division revenue allocation. And from the onset, I want to thank the leadership of this committee, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, and also Honorable Murungi, Senator, who are co-chairing this mediation committee, which I was part of, Mr. Speaker. It was an intense meeting, and some of the misconceptions that came out that the National Assembly does not support devolution were cancelled that day, because members from the National Assembly who were sitting in this mediation committee agreed with the Senate that it is important for us to fund devolution fully so that devolution can work for our people. And it actually came out from the final amount that was agreed on, Mr. Speaker. The Senate had proposed 415 billion, CRA had proposed 396 billion, the National Assembly had proposed 391 billion, Mr. Speaker. But by the end of the mediation process, we all agreed on a figure that is unprecedented, that is 401 billion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker, that will go to our counties as the shareable revenue. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with Honorable Nyikal, who said that it is important when we're doing the budget policy statement in this House that we also know what are the priority areas of our counties, Mr. Speaker, because then it will inform our decisions, even as the Budget and Appropriations Committee, also as a House, Mr. Speaker, because we know what the counties are looking at, what are their projections, what are some of the things that they would like to do. When we met at the mediation process, Mr. Speaker, which you are also part of it, you saw that the Senate actually had an elaborate view of why they wanted more funds to go to the counties, Mr. Speaker. They had a document which showed that in the counties, there were some counties which had started doing the industrial parks. There were 21 others which have not started. There are continuing one which need to be funded, Mr. Speaker. There was also the issue of the community health workers, Mr. Speaker, where the county government were giving a shilling and the national government was also giving a shilling so that our community health promoters who are doing an excellent job are actually funded. There were also the statutory requirement of the taxes that were increased to, like the national, the housing levy or fund, which the county government employees are supposed to also remit. And so the Senate had a bigger picture and had the picture of why county governments had the funds, Mr. Speaker. And so I do agree that this House need to be appraised of some of these issues when we're doing the BPS. And so the matters that are discussed at the IBEG need to find itself in this House, Mr. Speaker, so that when we're allocating these funds, then we know what we are dealing with, Mr. Speaker. It is also clear, and we agreed, that even though we have some challenges in some of our counties, Mr. Speaker, we will, in terms of misappropriation of these funds once they get themselves to the county, as a House, we will not play that politics of individual counties, Mr. Speaker. We will allocate funds to our counties because some of our counties, devolution is what has brought services closer to our people, Mr. Speaker. And also the whole issue of 85% and some of the funds remaining at the national government, we need to really look at some of the functions. For example, matters health, matters agriculture, and devolve the funds, the functions, and money to follow those functions, Mr. Speaker, once we give out, those functions are devolved, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to congratulate the chairperson of the Council of Governors, Honorable Anne Waiguru. We have seen her over time engaging with the relevant committees and also even members to see that the funds have continuously been increased from the time she was chairperson. We've seen her dedication and her commitment in ensuring that more funds go to the counties, Mr. Speaker, and also that those funds are remitted on time before the end of the financial year to go to our counties so that they can serve our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Members, join me in welcoming students from Happy Land Girls Senior School from Kajiado East. They are seated in the Speaker's Gallery. They are welcome to follow our proceedings this afternoon. I'll give Honorable Caleb Mule 1 minute to welcome both Machakos Girls and the Happy Land Girls. Honorable Mule.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to welcome Machakos Girls and the schools that are at the Speaker's Gallery and the public gallery. And I would like to encourage you, the sky is the limit. One time, Many years ago, I visited, and I was seated at the gallery, and I didn't imagine one time I will be seated inside here to debate. So you're welcome, and you're encouraged to continue working hard. The sky is the limit. Thank you very much. Just to contribute on that, Speaker,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Speaker.
This, the Honorable Mulia, that was not your chance to contribute. This chance now goes to the member for Suna West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the team of members of the National Assembly and the Senate who mediated for us this bill, the mediated version of Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill of number 14 of 2024. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it is very important, and as a country, what we can celebrate is the 2010 Constitution. After independence, after we got independence, what we can celebrate, all of us, is 2010 Constitution, which came about with the issue of counties. Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy to have been the part of the members of Public Accounts Committee of the last Parliament, the 12th Parliament, who audited the government books of account to an extent where now counties can get money based on the audited account of 2020-2021. By the 11th Parliament, when we got into 12th Parliament, the audited accounts of government were 2013-2014 financial year. Mr. Speaker, having said that, we must retrospect ourselves as a country. Is devolution working for us? Are we getting value for the money we are appropriating to the county government? Mr. Speaker, if you ask me this critical question, I'll say, without mingling my words, that devolution is still not working for us because of the issues of governance. Mr. Speaker, I'm an authority when it comes to issue of governance, county government. Mr. Speaker, when I'm the last mayor of Municipal Council of Migori. When we were using Latif, which was a little money, people could see projects done by the municipal council and county governments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, currently, with over 400 billion, if you ask the citizens of this country, majority will tell you the project done by CDF, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, what I'm proposing is that I'm in support of county government, but we need to do something as a country. We need to legislate acts which can enable the public to get value for their money on this money which we are allocating to county governments. Mr. Speaker, we must ask, what is the role of control of budget? Is it effective? We must empower now the Auditor General so that the 400 billion we are allocating to county can be audited by auditors so that we can get value for our money. Mr. Speaker, my proposal is that MCAs who are supposed to oversight the governors, we need to create what is called ward development funds so that each ward, after we have allocated money for counties, each ward can get their share of this budget. Not that all MCAs who are worshipping governors can get project while the rest of the MCAs are not getting project. For example, when you speak about an evil a governor is doing as an MCA, you'll be blacklisted. Therefore, moving forward, Mr. Speaker, I suggest that Ward Development Fund need to be put in place, and then we budget for Auditor General to be doing audit for counties. But furthermore, Mr. Speaker, as a country, we need to do things which can enable the public to see the benefits of the project being done by county governments. In some counties, you'll get a project of an ECD class done at 600,000 being launched by 20 vehicles, 100 staff of the county government. It means the money spent on the launching is more than the money used on a project. Mr. Speaker, this must stop. As we are taxing people, as we are giving people, making people to pay taxes, let them get benefits for the tax they pay is when, if you increase taxes, they'll not complain. Mr. Speaker, my proposal is, moving forward 10 years after devolution, we need now to recheck on what must be done so that we can improve on the quality of services people are getting from the money we allocate to county governments of Kenya. Thank you, and may God bless you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker. I join my colleagues also in support of this Division of Revenue Bill, which provides funds to the national government, county governments, equalization funds, and the consolidated funds services. Honorable Speaker, I also thank the Committee on Mediation that did mediate on this bill. Mr. Speaker, we are where we are today because of the ineffectiveness of the Commission of Revenue Allocation. And as a country and as a House, we must think critically if we still need this Commission of Revenue Allocation. If we really need it, Mr. Speaker, they must up their game and advise accordingly. Two, we should also think if we really need these commissioners on full-time basis, because according to the responsibilities and the roles they have, it's only to advise and propose a formula. Going forward, Mr. Speaker, the national government has been allocated a whopping about 2.5 trillion shillings. As much as we are looking at the 400 billion allocated to the county governments, we must also interrogate how this money that are at the national government, about 85% of the budget, are utilized across the country. I propose that we must allocate these monies based on the constituency levels. We should interrogate this budget to know, out of the 290 constituencies, what has gone to Quisero, for example, what has gone to Genya, for example, what have gone to Kiharu, for example, so that we maintain the equality of resource distribution in this country. Mr. Speaker, as we allocate and appropriate 400 billions to county governments, according to the Schedule 4 of the Constitution, the functions that are there that the county governments are supposed to be done must be done. One, Mr. Speaker, we must ensure that our health sector or our health systems are working. Our people in the villages must be able to access quality, must be able to access safe, must also to access, the health sector must also be accessible to these people so that they can be treated. Two, we look at the issue of water. We must ensure that we have safe water to our people, and this water must be also accessible to the doorsteps. Mr. Speaker, as we finish, we must also allow those kings, those patriots, those people who have fought for devolution of this country. One, Mr. Speaker, as we support, we must also appreciate the Azimio leader, Mr. Raila Amolo Odinga, who has really fought for devolution of this country. Mr. Speaker, as we wish him well as he goes to the African Union, we must all laud him for his efforts that he did to ensure that devolution works in the Republic of Kenya. Lastly, as a House, Mr. Speaker, we must rise and interrogate this budget and ensure that this budget is equitable, distributed to all regions in the Republic of Kenya. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I wish you well as a party leader of my MDG. Thank you.
Thank you. The last one is most important, actually. The member for Kisii.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I support this, allow me first to tell our male members of parliament the month of June is Men's Mental Health Month. And Mr. Speaker, to give them a small quote, please, because we women can't do without the male. Life is sweet, it's tough and unforgiving, so you know what to do. As I support, Mr. Speaker, the motion, let me say there are so many things that have been devolved to our counties, and we keep talking about them. For instance, Mr. Speaker, I come from Kisii County. We have very fertile rains. Water is devolved. Unfortunately, immediately after the rains, Mr. Speaker, our women walk down to the streams to fetch water. Some county functions, as per today, Mr. Speaker, are not working. Like Kisii County, we have more resources which are lying idle in the CRF account, And as we give them the budget, Mr. Speaker, I think we should have a stern warning to those governors who don't pay the pending bills. There is no need, Mr. Speaker, to give them money, yet when the financial year is gone, they still have a lot of money in those accounts. Contractors are complaining, which is not good when the money is there. Teachers are complaining, more especially the ECD teachers. They don't have classes. They have not been promoted. It is very sad. Like, as per today, you will realize, Mr. Speaker, there is no even tetanus vaccination in the hospitals. Most of us women who wanted maybe to plan giving birth this year, it is discouraging us. Small things which are basic to us are missing. So, Mr. Speaker, even the extension officers who used to train our farmers on good agricultural policies, they are missing. You give money for floods to counties, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, you find maybe the governor is giving 5,000, 10,000 to victims. You count the whole allocation. You find out that out of the 200 million which has been given to mitigate the floods, they've only spent maybe 10,000 in tokenism, which is not good. Let us, as we give out this money, consider doing the drainage, because when we have more floods, we are even affecting our soil nutrients. We will have no food, Mr. Speaker. Let me end it there. Thank you.
For Laffy. Is it Lafay?
Yes, yes.
Is it Lafay or Laffy?
Lafay.
I'm for Lafay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Speaker, I want to say I support more than 15 billion. This will help the devolved functions to perform better, because we know some governors are doing very good job. In our area, Mr. Speaker, it is in record, out of the 47 counties, it is only in Mandera County where the governor of Mandera County is paying the school fees for all secondary schools in Mandera County. So that is a good job, and I say thank you to our governor, because he's helping the people who have elected him, because today as we speak, since the governor was elected, no parent is paying a single coin for students going to secondary schools, and I say that's good work. Chair, we all, Mr. Speaker, we all know that health is a devolved, water, agriculture, ECD. So in this increase, we'll also support the governors to employ more youth, because our youth there are jobless. We know there are those who have done nurses. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, you find in Lafay a whole health center with only 2 nurses. So this now will help. The governors will now at least will not have a reason to say that we cannot employ because we don't have money. Now that we have given them 15 billion for shareable revenue, now they will have a reason. They will not have a reason to say we don't have money to employ youth. Mr. Speaker, we also know some governors have went out of their way to provide school feeding programs in their respective counties. So this will help them to do more work. I want also to go on record in thanking His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, because we know he supported devolution, and without his support, we couldn't have at least today said we are increasing this. Because of his good support, now the governors will get 15 billion more. So, Speaker, we know there are some areas which do not have ECD centers. In my constituency, there are so many locations without ECD centers. Now we will be happy, and the governors now, I'm sure, will prioritize this as a priority. With those few remarks, I say thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for South.
I support.
Thank you. Member for South Mugirango.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate the committee, the mediation committee, for reaching out to this decision and allocating 400.1 billion to the county governments. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is the first time that this amount, or rather the county governments, are being allocated this substantial amount. It has always ranged between 370, 350, 380, and now we are at around 400 billion. And this is, when you work on the last audited report, you'll realize, Honorable Speaker, that this, in terms of percentage, it is about 24.4%. And up above what the Constitution sets as the limit or the least, 15%. So there is a growth, or rather a rise in percentage by 9.4%. We are in the right trajectory. But, Honorable Speaker, I support this with a lot of pain. A lot of pain. Because we really know what county governments do. Much as we appreciate some counties that do a tremendous job, Honorable Speaker, it is also important for us to mention that there are other counties that you can hardly see what these amounts do. In as much as the national government is deeply focused on supporting devolution, pushing all the resources to the county governments, but it's also important for us to state that devolution in some counties, I don't know how others are able to do, but in some counties, Honorable Speaker, is not working. It is quite shocking that this amount of money, when now it is shared across the counties, if each person sits down with a pen and paper and do calculations of the amount of money their county receives, you'll be shocked and surprised on how that huge amount is misused. You'll actually be left wondering how an amount of money, for example, in my account, where 15 billion in the shared revenue is allocated in my county, you can hardly see what it does. Because we really need to review this law. Honorable Speaker, even as we celebrate that this amount, the huge amount, has gone to the county governments, I think it's about time that we have a discussion on how this amount should be spent. Because it is sad that it's about 90% of it goes to the recurrent expenditure. And unless we want to close our eyes, I think it's about time we support that the MCS get to the level of managing funds in the name of Ward Development Fund. That is the only time that you can be able to see devolution really working. Otherwise, what we've actually done is creating some demigods in counties. You know, some people who assume big titles and move around like presidents, mini presidents within the counties, but you can hardly see what they do. And this is replicated across the country. You will see, and I said this last time and I was actually misquoted, you will see governors having their own, Honorable Speaker, I see you.
The Honorable Kawanjiko, you shall never do what you've just done again today, ever. You can never pass in front of a member contributing and looking at the eyes directly. You're not supposed to pass between him and myself, the Speaker. You distract him and you distract the House.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Kawanjiko is, I think this morning is confused.
Wakati huo nilifikiria siwezi kushindwa. Ningeendesha boda kwa kasi, kukwepa na kuvuka barabara ovyo ovyo. Ningefanya chochote ili kufika napokwenda haraka. Lakini siku moja
Boda ni life, lakini life si kitu bila usalama. Zingatia kanuni za trafiki. Hakikisha unavaa helmet na reflector jacket wakati wote.
Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.